I did not successfully protect myself. I was hurt and I was abused and I was damaged very badly. Damn if I didn't survive. It's painful, but don't let that define you. Like, where is your fight? Teach people to fight. Don't teach them to give in to their trauma. Like, I've been through so many things that I feel like I can say with a little bit of authority that there is a way out. That's one of the reasons why I think it's worthwhile for me to tell my story. Because if people know how bad it was, it's like, I don't want you to pity me and I don't want you to be depressed. I want you to realize that if you encounter somebody, it's not like, oh, well, of course they're like that. They have to be that way because XYZ. No, they don't.
This is my conversation with Dusty May Taylor. We talk about how it was like for her growing up in a turbulent environment that was marked by violence and by witchcraft, and how she found her way out of that through faith and through her love for people. Dusty tells her story with both humor and insight, and it was quite amazing to go on this journey with her. And I hope that you find this conversation as thought-provoking as it was for me. If you like the Jeffrey van Leeuwen podcast, please consider subscribing or following the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Leaving a comment or positive review is also a great way to help out. And with that out of the way, here's my conversation with Dusty May Taylor. Good to see you, Dusty. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. Yes, this will be fun. I have no idea how it's going to go or where it's going to go, but I'm open. So
yeah, let's completely find out together. I guess so. This will be we discussed this a little bit before. Let's delve more into kind of like an autobiographical conversation. So yeah, feel free to take it from any place that makes the most sense for you. Where do we start? Where does your story start?
where does my story start? I was thinking about this just before we started. It was like, where does my story start? I don't think anybody's story starts with them. We all come from somewhere. So I sort of have to go into a little bit of the backdrop, I think. I love my family. I think they are super interesting. I'm very interested in things like genealogy, but where I came from made me, but where I came from also made my life very difficult. Like, I got off to a very difficult start. So my mother's side of the family, her father was involved with like the Mafia and things like that. Sorry if you hear my cat. I am, of course, makes it real.
That's extra character.
Didn't Mara have a cat too?
Yes, she did. She did.
Yeah, so, but, oh, it's perfect. Yeah, so my Grandpa Nick, he was a little bit of a mafioso. He was a really tough guy, Sicilian. And he married my grandmother, who, my mom's mom, so it would have been my dad's mother-in-law. He described her as one of the most frighteningly intelligent people he'd ever met. Like, quite a few people have described her as scary and intelligent. She was kind of a businesswoman. And their life was strange. Like, they raised racehorses, they had businesses. He was in and out of jail, but he never admitted it and wouldn't tell us what for. He admitted it to some people in the family, not to others. He had these like mysterious prison tats, and if you asked him, he would get this cheeky Sicilian grin and be like, I never went to jail once. What in the hell's the matter with you? He would like cuss, but he'd have this like little twinkle in his little Sicilian eye. And
like a little bit of a proud twinkle.
Oh, you never met anyone with the charisma of my grandfather. This is why I say, like, I love these people. He was terrifying. Like, one of his favorite stories, his stories always ended with things like, and then I threw the son of a bitch out the window. Sorry if you can't cuss. If I'm quoting other people, I might cuss a little bit. But he'd like laugh heartily, like, ha ha ha, I threw him out the window and everybody watched and I was a big man. But then also he was disturbing. Like, he had another story of a family dog that his children loved, like my mother and her siblings loved. And he would tell how the dog got into his car one day and he told it, "Get the hell out of the truck. I gotta go to work." And the dog was like, "Grr." And he was like, "All right then, you SOB." And so he went, he got a shotgun, shot the dog,
What?
pulls the dog out, shoots it, throws it to the curb, and then went to work. That'll teach it. Ha ha ha. He thought it was hilarious.
All
Well,
right.
then his kids lose their family pet. He doesn't, so not a lot, so very amoral, not a lot in the way of conscience. And then, so my poor like my poor mother, and then her mother, my grandmother, she was beautiful. She was grandiose. She liked to wear large hats and fur collars. And she had these, you know, captivating bright blue eyes. And she was fiercely ambitious. And she was the business drive in the couple. And she was intelligent. And she was also an alcoholic. And she was also a practitioner of witchcraft. So she was
It's a
into,
good combination.
yeah, lots of like occult things. Um, my grandfather, towards the end of his life, I was talking to him and he broke down crying. It was one of the only times I ever saw him cry. And he was like, nobody would ever believe me if I told them what that woman put me through. Like, very, very strange stuff. And this produced my mother, who I love, who is, I wouldn't be here without her. And I have a lot more in common with her than many of my relatives are comfortable with. I look like her. We have similar mannerisms. She's outgoing. She was very beautiful when she was younger. She has like almost no conscience. She's very sadistic. And so
Sadistic how? How do you mean that?
my my mother enjoyed causing trouble in people's lives. She played with them like they were, and us, my siblings and I, like you're a toy. Like if she got bored, she might just screw with someone's head or destroy their life for fun. She represented herself in 3 court cases as I was growing up and won all 3 of them. Refused to hire lawyers. She had a grade 9 education, dropped out of school when she was 14, took off, joined the carnival, got married when she was 17 the first time. Um, my mom's really intelligent. I don't even know, but she's mysterious. I don't know where she got some of her information. There were times in my life she was full of facts about politics and she knew conspiracy theories before conspiracy theories were a thing. Like she was just all over the place. Um, yeah, really great head for business, very ambitious. Also had a history in witchcraft, which played a part in my childhood as a result. She's dark, like, and my dad fell in love with her, and that's how I was born. So the context is important because my childhood, my story is so strange, and it doesn't make sense if you don't understand the people. Now, my father, his mother was a Baptist deaconess. She was from a long line of sturdy, dependable government leaders, German descent on her side, church leaders, clergy. I've traced the genealogy back. They're very respectable. One of her great uncles was in my philosophy textbook in high school. He was a philosopher, and some of my distant relatives on that side are like, the dean of universities in Canada and stuff like this. Smart people, sturdy people, Christian, you know. But she got duped by the man she married. He turned out to have a violent temper, and he became an addict later as well. Like he became an alcoholic. He was extremely abusive. And so my dad has a really good heart. He was pretty traumatized growing up. He became a little bit wild. He loved to build motorcycles, ride motorcycles. He could fix anything. he ended up in Ontario, and yeah, ended up with my mother. He left his first wife, actually. He had married his high school sweetheart. And I'm sure he regretted leaving her later because look what he got. Oh boy. Um, but yeah, so he left his high school sweetheart, his first wife, divorced her because she wanted babies and a white picket fence. And he said, no way in hell. I don't want a white
Hmm.
picket fence and pooping, crawling babies. I want my motorcycle. I'm going to go join my brother in the land of
Hmm.
opportunity in Ontario, Canada.
Hmm.
Um, and so he gets there and sees my mom at the top of the ladder working on the sign outside her occultic wheeler dealer mother's antique shop. Looked up at her. She had a really nice figure. And he said he was most intrigued. Thus it began. Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's how they met.
That's how they met. Um, Very interesting couple. They ended up opening up a hardware store together. My mother already had my sister. So she was a toddler, anywhere from 2 to 4 years old. I'm not sure how old she actually was because um, what my mom told me and what my dad told me are different about this. Um, so that's my older sister who died a few months ago. And so, yeah, my mom already had her. And there's irony because my dad had left his wife because he didn't want to be a father, but he fell in love with my extremely vivacious and charismatic, voluptuous mother who loved her tight jeans and low cut tops and her perfect makeup. And she ended up being a father. And then she had
Hmm.
my older brother. And then a couple of years later, she had me. And
Hmm.
by the time she had me, that was the year they split up. So they had a few tumultuous but somewhat okay years together. You know, they went on motorcycle trips across the country, left the kids with some nannies. They had a hardware store together. But then the darkness started to emerge. The head games started. Her psychological abuse started. Yeah, and so they split up the year
Right.
I was born.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you've never actually seen your parents together ever.
No, not really. Not that I can remember. No, my earliest memory is when I was about 2. They weren't together then.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. It sounds like, especially on your mother's side, it sounds like there was a lot of not just violence, but it was quite a hectic dynamic. It sounds like with them. So violent, the occult you said, with
Hmm.
witchcraft and the sadistic part that you mentioned, where she took
Yes.
pleasure in bringing other people down. So it sounds like she was in an environment that was quite, yeah, I'm not sure if disruptive is the right word, but let's just go with that word. Um, do you know why your father stayed um, with her in the beginning? Why was she able to captivate him in some degree, or do you know how that beginning of that relationship looked?
He loved her. They loved each other very much. Well, I don't know how much
Hmm.
she loved him. I don't understand. I don't quite know how my mom ticks. Like, I don't know what her experience of life is. But my mom is so
Hmm.
lovable. She's charming. She's funny. She's adventurous. If we were going to talk in terms of Peterson Academy, very high openness, right? And
Right. Okay.
very extroverted
Right.
and very disagreeable. Textbook recipe for narcissism. She
Okay.
doesn't have like any empathy really. Like I don't know that she has any. She has cognitive empathy, but I don't know that she feels it. It's difficult
Right.
to explain. But no, they had so much fun. Like he just loved her. No, nobody who's people who are not psychopathic or narcissistic, they don't meet somebody like that and know, right? Like you see and you fall in love with what you expect. And I think you expect a normal person. So he saw she was fun and she was useful. Like very, she was a good businesswoman.
Hmm.
Yeah, like probably they shared ideas together. And he would have assumed that the emotions went deep, like his did. I imagine. But I know he loved her. Even years later, he always told me he was shaken. The whole thing really shook my dad.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, he actually had a struggle with alcoholism at that time. He started drinking really heavily, and he wasn't a Christian when they were together. Um,
He started drinking because of the experience that you just described, and them splitting up
he,
also.
I believe his alcoholism started when he was much younger, like much younger.
Right.
So that runs in
Hmm.
that side of the family. His father had become an alcoholic. My uncle, so my father's brother was an alcoholic, and my father became an alcoholic. But his drinking became out of control with with the volatility of his relationship with my mother, and that actually led him to God. He got to a point where he was so desperate
Hmm.
that he it was after they split up. He kind of got to his knees and was like, Jesus, if you're real, you need to deliver me from this. And he remembers the date, time, and hour. He said he felt him get himself be delivered of alcoholism. He didn't go through withdrawals. He never touched it again. He never craved it again. He instantly became a believer in Jesus. He was like, okay, Granny was right. Like his mother, my granny. He's like, mother was right. And he was like, damn. So he became a Christian,
Hmm.
but never really went to church. He just stopped drinking, and my dad is very pragmatic. He's like, I asked Jesus if he was real to deliver me. I had no ability to stop drinking. I was physically addicted and psychologically addicted. I felt the addiction leave in response to a prayer, and he felt this peace come over him, and he
Right.
felt himself
He asked
changed.
for it, and he got the piece he wanted.
Yeah, so that
Hmm.
was enough for him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I asked you about your mom, or actually when you described your mother for the first time, the thing that you mentioned at the very beginning of your story was that you loved her.
I love my mom.
That was the very first thing that you said.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's make the jump to to your story, to where you start. So despite everything that you just laid out, and despite the personality that your mother inhibits, you still describe her with the word love at the very beginning. Where do you think that word? Where do you think that feeling comes from?
I
What
think
does it mean for you?
anybody. Hmm. I'm thinking through what assumptions I can make. I was about to say, well, everybody loves their parents, but I don't know that everybody loves their parents. I assume everybody loves their parents. I actually got into a debate, I think, on Peterson Academy about that with somebody. I was like, everybody loves their parents, and maybe everybody doesn't.
Hmm.
So my assumption is that everybody loves their parents, and so of course I love my mother. Also, I mean, I met God very young, and one of the first things He started speaking to me um, in my spirit was, forgiveness and understanding where people come from. And I also believe in like honoring your mother and your father. I believe that very strongly. And it's not just it's not just something that the Bible teaches, it's also just wise. How do you not honor where you came from? There's something self-destructive if you can't love your parents. Um, you come from them whether you like it or not. So, and also there were many good times with my mother. I mean, I haven't spoken to her now in like 12 years or something. 12 years. Um, and before that, I interacted with her for about 3 years. So there's like a 3 year period where we had a relationship 12 years ago. And then before that, I hadn't spoken to her in about 8 years. So when I say I love her, it doesn't mean I trust her. Um,
You love her as a mother.
yeah, I love her as a mother, and she's interesting. Like my temperament, I inherited the openness of my parents, and I love interesting people. And she's funny as hell. Like it's bad. Um, like stuff that she would do is not good. It's like my grandpa. Like, oh, grandpa, you shot the dog. but he laughs and he's so damn charming about it when he tells a story, right? Like he's dead now. He died when he was just a little over 100. So I relate to Dr. Keith Campbell. Have you watched his narcissism course?
I have not. No.
Bah. Okay, so when you get there, actually, but this comes out in all of his courses. Dr. Campbell, I identify with him so much because he'll talk about he's not a fan of psychopaths, but he has kind of a sense of humor about narcissists, and he laughs and he jokes and he's like, oh, I get along with them great. So I completely get where he's coming from. But then if you push it, he will have moments where he gets serious and he'll say, but if you're with one and you can get out, you're not safe. Like, he knows. Do you know what I mean? And that's sort of me with my family. It's like, oh, that son of a gut, that turkey. Oh, she sued someone again. And, oh, she told you this. She told me that. And, oh, she blackmailed you. Of course she did. That mom,
Exactly.
Well, you got to have a sense of humor, Jeffrey, or you go mad. So,
Apparently, it's very hard to detect them at first, though. So if you're in a conversation with one, it's very hard to find the nuances in their speech and in their behavior and in the way they look out of their eyes to see what they're up to.
Are you referring to psychopaths?
Yeah.
I think it's a myth that you can detect them just by looking at their eyes. I think that's...
Yeah, but I
I
think
think
just
people
in
use
general.
that to sell books.
Yeah, just in general, I think it's very hard to detect nuance in people to begin with if you're like in a direct interaction with them. This is
Yes.
and I'm making a very weird jump over here, but when I'm, for example, interviewing people for a position at a company, that's the whole reason why I like to do that, not just by myself, but with another person, because then, one person can be engaged in the actual interview, and the other
Yes.
person can then focus on things like body language, like intonation, how
Yeah.
what how the muscles in the face move, things like that. And it even goes in conversations like the one you and I are having right now.
That's right.
Not saying anything about you, and the same goes the other way. But
Offend me. Do it.
the point I'm trying to make is right now, because we are in a direct interaction, I will not necessarily pick up the nuances in your speech and in your in what you're in your face, or things like that. But after the fact, and usually I have this when I listen to recordings after the recordings are done, I find nuances or even a small snippets of wisdom in what people said that I didn't pick up at the beginning at all. So anyway, long story, but point is, it's very hard to pick up all the information in a direct interaction with someone.
Well, that comes down to salience, right? Not everything is salient. Because my immediate response when you said that was, oh, it puts us at a bit of a disadvantage, doesn't it? But then I had to quickly catch myself because no. This is simply how life is. It can't be a disadvantage. There's wisdom in real life experience. I would hate to think that we're at a disadvantage without the advent of technology. Like, oh, if you can't watch your interaction with somebody on playback, then you're at a disadvantage. I'm not comfortable with that, so I shouldn't say it, and so I recant it before I say it. And now I've said it. So,
Check.
okay, but yes, you don't. This is why it's important to have a high trust community. Ideally, you would be able to trust people, right? And then you don't need to be watching for the kind of the danger cues. But, and I will say though, like, so for me, having grown up the way I grew up, I'm really sensitive to danger cues. Like, I've even said to people, I don't know if because I'm quite high in neuroticism, much higher in volatility than withdrawal, but still hella neurotic. And I'm not pleased about it, but I don't know how much of that is because of my upbringing, like that threat detection just being a little bit more elevated. But I'm pretty fast at spotting like narcissistic and psychopathic people, and I don't always know why I know. And for years, actually, until very recently, I felt guilty about it. Like, oh, I'm judging people, or oh, no, it's just my trauma speaking. But then my initial would always be proven right. And so now I'm at the point where I just go with it. Like,
Mhm.
no, if I have that initial, I was even watching the neuroplasticity thing, like I would have been trained on dangerous people. I know, even if it's subconscious, I know what I'm looking for. So yeah, it's
But when
interesting.
did you figure that? So we're now taking a jump back though. But how did you figure that out? Because it makes perfect sense what you're saying. I think to me right now it sounds like a combination of both. You know, nature and nurture.
Right.
You can inherit personality traits from your parents, like in your genes, but you can also
Mm,
definitely learn from experience that you have as a kid, especially if you get hurt, and
mm,
then be more aware of whatever happened in order to prevent the thing from happening again. So it's probably a combination of both that you're experiencing. Um, if we go towards practical examples, and especially you as a
mm.
very young child, because you were clearly around what would the word be? Interesting personalities. Let's just call them that.
Yes.
Um, how did you? So let me formulate this properly. How did you protect yourself against things like abuse or getting hurt or getting taken advantage of, or how did you detect that? And did you detect it at first? And if you did, how did you deal with that? And how did you grow in that? And how did you prevent it from happening again as you got older? I hope the question makes sense.
Yes, I think so. I
Mhm.
did not successfully protect myself. I was hurt and I was abused and I was damaged very badly. So, but I did, damn if I didn't survive. So I've survived better than my siblings. And I don't say that with like glee or like arrogance. It's just like a fact. My earliest memories are of fear. So I remember, well, no, that's not true. My first impressions, I have a couple of snippets, but like I have this impression of a memory when I was not old enough to walk. I don't know how young I would have been, but I remember being in this plastic baby bathing thing, and my mom
Hmm.
forgot me in it. So
Like
I
a
was
like a
being,
like a small bathtub,
yeah, like it was on like a stand.
right?
Anyways, I
Okay,
was
yeah.
in it, and I have this memory of like being bathed and then left. And I remember hearing her, something drew her attention to the kitchen, and it got colder and colder, and I yelled for a while, and then nobody came back, and then I stopped. And I remember it. Um, and I learned a little bit from that. And then other just bad things.
What did you learn? Because
I
this must have been a
learned
very very old memory. You were like probably like
very
a year
old.
old or something like that.
I don't know. I don't know how old I would have been. Really young. I have a
Hmm.
pretty good memory. Um, but really young.
Clearly, my first memory is when I'm 5 years old. So.
Oh, wow. No, I have some very early memories and quite a few of them.
Hmm.
Um, what did I learn? Well, you learn not to ask for help. So that was very early.
Hmm.
It was like don't assume you're gonna get help. But what's strange about me, I suppose, is there was like a level of acceptance. Like, and it might be my openness as well. Like I don't know how young you are open, but like I was a smart baby. That's what I'm like. I sound so conceited. This is awful. Narcissism runs in the family, you know. I was a smart baby. This baby knew no help was coming. Um,
It's really
okay, but
smart.
it's got to be. There's some truth to that, right? Because there, there's no words to articulate it, but there was like an understanding. Like I remember stopping crying because there was no point, and I remember that.
You
And
realized that as a very young kid that help wasn't coming.
yes, but it's not like in words. I'm very fascinated by how thought manifests devoid of language because I have a couple of memories like this. Um People wonder about this with animals and stuff like that. I don't want to compare young children to animals, although my relatives might. But, that whole cognition devoid of language is a very interesting topic to me. Yes, I understood no help was coming. I understood that I needed help and I knew it wasn't coming, and so there was no point continuing to cry after a certain point. And it was strong enough. That's got to be the only reason I remember that snippet of memory. Has to be the only reason, right? Because it was an impression. And then I have another snippet of memory, but there's other things I've probably blocked out, and it's probably a good thing because of different types of abuses. I have suspicions, but no knowledge. But I remember fearing my mother. So I remember her scent, and I remember just a wariness. And it might have been from watching her hit or otherwise abuse my older sister. Like, I really don't know, but I remember fearing her. Like, I never remember, I have no memories of seeing my mother as a source of comfort. So I kind of admired her.
It was like
And
like an aura that she was carrying,
sorry?
like an aura that she was carrying that wasn't
Yes.
safe.
Yeah. When I wrote my book, I described it as like rabbits know a fox. Like, you have instinct. It felt like instinct to me, but it has to have been
Danger.
learned because danger. Like, I just knew she was dangerous, but at the same time, I needed her. So it sucks. There's nothing worse than children who are powerless in the face of abusive parents. It's really awful, especially when they're really young. I feel so bad for them.
To me, that's very. It's so these kind of stories. Um, to people who have never experienced that, it's very hard to imagine living in a situation like that. So if I ask myself the question, like, how would it be as a 2-year-old to be in an environment and know that you're in an environment that isn't safe and that is dangerous and that there's nobody around that will help you and you should take care of yourself because no one else will do it. That's I think if you haven't experienced it, it's like you can understand it, I suppose, but you can't. Well, you can't literally imagine it because it has never been part of your experience.
That's interesting.
How do you
Yeah.
look? How do you look back on that time? So if right now, as an adult, right? If I would ask you the question, like, okay, so clearly all this stuff happened, and you were very young because you were clearly like 1, 2, 3 years old or something like this when you've had these
Those memories.
experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? What's like the thing that comes to your mind when you think about that?
Um, well, the things that I'm learning in Peterson Academy, plug. No, okay, but no. Like the brain, the neuroplasticity course, just that first session when he was talking about how your experiences shape you. Um, and then that combined with, reading some of the work of Abigail Schreier, and she talks about, the loss of freedom that some children have. I gotta tell you, Jeffrey, I don't know who I would be without my toxic upbringing. And so to me it's kind of just become part of who I am, part of my story.
Your
It's
identity. Yeah.
sad. Yeah, it's not. So I've gone through lots of healing stages where, like, I don't know that they were helpful though. Like, I have a beef with counseling. I don't know if some of these counseling processes I've gone through where it's like, oh, just cry for baby Dusty. Just imagine holding
Right.
the poor little baby Dusty. Like,
Right.
I've been through those things, and it's like, oh, you're sad and you cry. I don't actually know if that was beneficial though, or if it just put me in a season of depression. The way I see it currently is it was sad, but it's all very interesting. At least I've got a good story. I mean, that's the high openness. Sometimes I wonder if God gave me high openness to like save me, but
Well, and in some degree, to some degree, it has some upsides as well. I mean, I can make the assumption that you're probably not a very naive person.
no.
So that might be an example of something good that comes out of a situation like that. It's very hard to be fooled, let's say, by different
You'd think,
personalities.
you'd think so. So my instincts haven't been fooled, but then what happened was my conscience because I really wanted to be normal and I didn't know what normal was. And so my life has been like a total shit show. Honestly, because I'm so far behind. It took me all my 20s just to even begin to get my head on straight. When I got out, like when I like left my dad's house later, like that's I should probably go into more of what happened at some point, like how things went. But I remember like I would tell people a little bit about my life and be confused by the horror on their face. Like I didn't understand how abnormal things were.
Like
Um,
non-family members.
yeah, like just like making friends and being out in the world. And
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I would
Okay.
casually say, "Oh yeah, this one time my mom made me kill my cats." And like they would be like horrified. And I'd be like, "Oh, I guess that's really bad, eh? Is that like really bad or just like kind of bad?" And and so then I learned not to tell people anything about my life because I felt guilty because I was like disturbing them. And then there was that whole thing of trying to outsmart what I'd learned, right? Like I thought myself into like a hamster wheel because it was like, oh, because people would say to me, because I'm just, I was young also and stupid and sometimes insensitive. And I learned
Hmm.
some really bad habits from my family. And so I would just kind of tick people off. Like I'm annoying sometimes, even now, and I'm mature now, supposedly. um, and so people would be like, well, you think that way because you've had a very unhealthy upbringing. Like you didn't have a good upbringing like me, so you just don't know any better. You know what I mean? Like it was one way people could attack me if I'd been ticking them off by being
Right.
full of
Right.
myself or intellectually
You
arrogant or
just had
whatever.
this experience, so this is why you are the
Yeah.
way you are.
Yeah. And
Right.
fair enough. Like fair enough. You got to hit me where you can, right? Especially if you were arguing with me or
Well, it's a
something.
pretty cheap shot to instantly put somebody in a box, but sure.
I guess so. I suppose. People I don't know how difficult I was to deal with, so I don't want to be too hard on them. I can be pretty
Hmm.
difficult. But what happened was I was always trying to outsmart my own programming. So then I would be like, oh, I'm suspicious of this person, but it's only because I have trauma issues, And that was me. I read self-help books and they're like, overcoming trauma. So much of it I think is total BS. Bad advice. That is not how you overcome trauma. But be careful that you're not reacting to people. You're projecting. They remind you of this person, but it's not real. And so I would actually like force myself
Hmm.
to trust bad people as a way of like, I don't know, showing that I had truly forgiven my family so much so that I could love and embrace people who reminded me of them. And also I wasn't being duped by the hardwiring. I was like outsmarting nature. Yeah. No, it turns out nature is smart. That's why. Which course was it? Was it Jordan Peterson who said yes? It was in Intro to Nietzsche and How do you say it? It
Nietzsche, I
was
think.
Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, yeah.
It was in that, and he said he's like your body doesn't let you have control over the most important things and the most complex things, right? So I was trying to outsmart learning that had taken place that I shouldn't have been trying to touch. I should have just accepted that I had really good instincts for people. And if I met somebody and judged that they were not trustworthy, instead of feeling guilty for being triggered,
Hmm.
I should have been like, my instincts are smart. I know
Hmm.
psychopaths, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I ended up married to one. So great.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting how that works. Eh? The whole idea that without even rationally thinking about it, like you don't even analyze a person what you're exactly picking up or what exactly they are saying or
Hmm.
what their intonation in their voice is, but somehow something just feels off. It's
Yes.
very interesting how that works. This
Yes.
is one of the things I learned recently from Jocko Willink.
Mm.
It was a very interesting way of looking at it. So that feeling that when you enter a conversation with someone, like I just said, and it just feels off, but you don't really know what it is,
Don't
and
know.
it stinks. And apparently, that is intent. Intent has a smell. It stinks.
Wow. Intent.
Intent. Yeah. So specifically in this case, bad intent. Yeah, it was very. So I'm not sure if this is true, like a universal truth, right?
Hmm.
So whenever you feel bad, that is automatically then bad intent. But regardless, it is a very interesting way to look at it. And to me, right now, it makes a lot of sense.
Right. Bookmarking.
Hmm.
I'll be thinking about that. That's very interesting.
Jocko Willink, very interesting guy.
Very cool. Hmm.
So before we go back to your story, because we can definitely continue the saga. Maybe a last little question.
Sure.
How do you properly align yourself so that what you are experiencing doesn't take you down and doesn't make you bitter and doesn't make you despair, but instead makes you go forward and makes you uh, build instead of destroy, help instead of leave alone? How do you properly orient yourself when you're dealing with these kind of personalities?
I'm not sure that I do. Um, First you have to wonder if I do properly orient myself. Okay. Well, I'm sane. That's something. So I think
Hmm.
if you come from a background like mine, if you manage to be sane and accept reality, accept the truth about your life and about yourself and about the world around you, you're doing good. That's kind of
Hmm.
the first thing that I'll say. Um, if you try to go into denial about the people you were brought up with and about yourself and the effect it's had on you and the effect it's had in your life, you're screwed. Lies screw you over.
Or
Like,
you allow yourself to be taken advantage of then.
yes, and
Hmm.
you live in a fantasy. You cannot engage with the real world properly.
Yeah.
Sanity has a value
Yes.
to it.
Hmm.
So, okay, the reason I'm going there is because you said, how do you not despair? Well, but knowing the truth sometimes causes me to despair. So I've had lots of moments of despair because I am not willing to live in delusion. I am not willing to live in delusion that because of my faith. So I am a crazy, passionate Christian who is currently not attending church. Ha! So cliche. So millennial. Um, right though.
You're pretty funny.
Oh, thank you. Look at that. See that?
All right.
The data lines up, right?
It
High
does.
openness, low
It
politeness
does. It does.
equals humor. Yeah.
High openness at work right here.
um, yes. Okay. So super, super passionate Christian. And
Mhm.
when I was about 3, my granny, the Baptist deaconess, told me about Jesus. And I had this crazy encounter that I still remember because she was telling me over a Bible storybook, and the light of God, the spiritual presence of God, it was a light that was seen, felt. It was in my inner eye, in my spirit, and it was like on me. And the memory itself is painted gold. And
Mm.
I felt God as she was telling me about Jesus. And I also felt that I'd already met that light, that it had been with me, even in like times, um, you know, being super young and left in the bathwater as it cooled around me. I
Mhm.
had, I hadn't really been alone, and Granny gave a name to him. And like an actual voice spoke in my spirit, not audible, but like you know, thought not mine, a thought that was not mine, sort of
Right.
telling me, like, yes, I'm Jesus. Yes, I'm God. I'm with you.
And
Listen
how
to your
old were you here?
granny. 3 dot dot dot.
3 years.
Yeah, by the time I was 3. Yeah, just doing
Okay.
timeline check.
Hmm.
And she told me a bit about she was a Baptist, you know. Jesus died on the cross for your sins and he loves you and he loves all the little children. Um so I knew like she kind of told me the basics, but I met God, and it meant a lot that the when I met God, he validated what she was saying. You know what I mean? So it wasn't so I don't do like the every path leads to God. Like I feel like he would have told me if that wasn't him. Like it was very clear and it was very direct. And after that, um I allowed myself to be taught and instructed by by God. It didn't happen all the time. This makes me sound like a crazy person. This is why I'm super glad that like in psychology they have that I said this on PA today, like culturally normative.
Hmm.
Spirituality is culturally normative within the religion of Christianity. Therefore, I am not psychotic. Um because someone's gonna say that I had a psychotic break when I was 3 years old and I never really came out of it. But anyways, um I was, yeah, instructed by God. And so there was these moments where my mom would be, she'd throw me to the ground and she'd be spitting and screaming in my face and all the things. And I would afterwards have the presence of God come upon me. And it would be like, you must forgive and you're not allowed to retaliate. You can't do eye for an eye sort of thing. Like if she
You have to
screams at
be a
you and
good
calls
person.
you have to be a good person and you have to
Hmm.
obey your mother even though she's abusive. And it was
Hmm.
like these morals were being fed to me, like from God. It was very strange, I guess. I
And you
guess
said
that's
your
very
grandmother
strange.
introduced you to this, right? And that's when
Yeah.
you
When I was
realized when you were
3.
3 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's interesting is I wasn't a huge fan of my granny because she and my dad left when I was 4. Because up until then he'd been visiting, because my parents split up really young. But when I was 4, he'd had enough and he cut all contact. And so she did as well. So I was just abandoned with this psychotic woman, psychopathic and psychotic, my mother. Um, but I never, what's interesting is I knew that, like, some people, it's like Christians betrayed me and they leave God.
Hmm.
I was like, they introduced me to God. God's never going to betray me, but they betrayed me. And
Right.
it was very, yeah. So not until I was 8 did I get my first Bible story book. My dad came back in the picture. And then I read that thing cover to cover and was just gleaning as much wisdom and as many moral lessons as I could. A few years later, I had an actual Bible. That's how I aligned myself.
If you didn't have that experience with your grandmother,
Yeah.
what do you think would have happened?
I'd either killed myself or I'd have become a very frightening person. I think. I've always had a conviction that I could have become quite a lot like my mother. And I don't know if it's true. Do you know what I mean? But I remember being given choices. Like I remember God saying you have to forgive. And I remember having to choose whether I did or didn't. My moral awareness started really young. Um, like I knew right from wrong really early. And I had a choice and I had to choose. And then as I got older and I got more angry, like I had moments as I got, and then I was bullied terribly at school as well. Oh, and I wanted sometimes to tear those friggin' girls to shreds. Because I also had strange insights. Like sometimes I would have like visions about stuff that was going on in people's houses at home. Like that was like behind why they did what they did. Like strange stuff. Like I would just like have these strange insights. And I would have to decide if I was going to empathize with them or tear them to shreds with what I knew. Like just destroy their soul, which is the kind of person my mother is. And it scared me that I could do it. There was one moment in high school I went into a dark place because eventually I gave in to the occult for a while, and because the demons were in the house. We haven't even gotten to the witchcraft. God, I was so tired. And so I kind of gave in for a while, and I had a full-blown mental breakdown when I was about 14. But yeah, in school, I started to, if somebody insulted me, there was a period of time, probably in grade 9, is my guess, where I gave back as good as I got, but probably worse. And I either overheard it in the hall or a friend told me. I have it written down, but I can't remember. But I remember somebody saying, don't mess with Dusty. It's not just that she's scary. She will destroy your soul. They were like, don't ever mess with her. And they were like, what? They were like, just trust me. Don't mess
Just,
with her.
just don't.
Just don't mess with her. And they said, I think they said she'll like destroy your soul or something like that. And I was like, I felt so guilty. And I felt God, and he was like, never use your gifts to hurt people. which told me that I could. And it scared the hell out of me.
It sounds to me like for a very big part of your childhood, from a very young age, that experience to the divine, to
Mm.
Jesus and to God, has saved you in many ways. Um, it sounds like you were stuck between a rock and what's the term? Between a rock and a hard place, with very uh, let's call them quite destructive personalities around you, and it sounds like you were struggling through that. You didn't have any other choice. They were in your house, like you said.
Hmm.
So it sounds like this saved you in not just one way.
Yes.
Would that
Or, and I
be
would have
would that
killed
be
myself.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. I, I would not have survived without God. I would not have survived. There's no way. Um, but it's not all doom and gloom. See, I feel bad for people sometimes when I tell my story. Thank God I have
Well,
some compassion.
this is like this is literally what I said like 15 minutes ago. This is one of these. Well, it's not one of these stories because I haven't heard one of these stories yet. But the stories of very hard moments at home, where people grow up in. It's very hard to imagine for people that never went through it. And I mean, every family has certain things that happen, right? I mean, I also have my stories that happened in my childhood. That goes for everybody. But there is a clear distinction between the kind of story that you're telling and well, also what we said before about the whole nature and nurture thing, and why you are who you are today, and is it part of what you experience, or is it part of just who you are and what you have in your DNA or in your genes. Um, it had a big impact. It sounds like
Hmm. Which, the experience or the genes?
the experiences.
The experiences. Oh yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I when I was younger, because I'm a lot healthier now, and I'm so grateful for it. But I've definitely you kind of
You, you,
experiment
you
with
look like it. Yeah.
things. You you experiment with ways of coping. So I definitely tried, like
Yes.
there was definitely a phase of like none of it impacted me. Well, that was like my craziest phase.
Right.
That's where
Right.
that denial doesn't work. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
But self-pity also doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, no, it impacted me for sure. Um, that's what I was gonna say. I've had to ask myself, why would I tell my story? Because it's like depressing. But I think it's very important that people understand that we have choices. Like, I'm genetically predisposed to every kind of crazy and addiction. God told me when I was like 8, like spiritually told me, you can't drink, you can't do drugs, you can't sleep around, you can't do these things. Like, it wasn't just that it was moral. I was warned and I obeyed. And
Mhm.
as a result, I'm the only one of my siblings who didn't end up like an addict or in like a scary lifestyle. Um, I actually have never drank like recreationally. I accidentally tasted wine in communion on 2 occasions in churches where I didn't know it was like, no, one time I knew and I just took the communion anyway, and the other time I didn't know. It's the only time I've had alcohol in my life. Never did drugs. Um, People have a choice. Like I hate I hate trauma culture. I hate this thing that tells people, "Oh, you know why you're struggling? It's because this thing happened." And the thing that'll happen, like I'm not trying to minimize, but the thing that'll happen, I will look at it and be like, "That's it." And I don't mean that as like I mean it like it's painful, but don't let that define you. Like,
Mhm.
where is your fight?
It's not your primary label.
Teach people to fight. Don't teach them
Mhm.
to give into to their trauma. Like I've been through so many things that I feel like I can say with a little bit of authority that there is a way out, you know? And I believe it takes God's help. And I'm not ashamed to say it because I think it's true. I think it would actually be ridiculous for me to think that I've survived without God's help. how? Like it does not, how? It does, even when I talk to psychologists, because I've talked to a couple and I've told them my story, even if they're secular, they're like, that's miraculous. They're like, you shouldn't, like, yeah. I've had to kind of stay away from some psychologists because like I don't want to become a case study, you know. Anyways, I tell my story is I hope it can give people some hope and help them to not get trapped in self-pity and this trauma culture and this like give me a safe space. I hate that stuff. I really do. I don't like it. I think it damages people, teaches them that they don't, it makes their strength impotent. I don't like it.
It becomes an excuse.
I don't like it. But it's crippling. It's not just an excuse. It's like you chop the legs right off them. This person could walk again and you're telling them they'll never walk again. You know what I mean? Emotionally or psychologically. I don't like it. Sorry. That's my soapbox. That's one of the reasons why I think it's worthwhile for me to tell my story. Because if people know how bad it was, it's like, I don't want you to pity me and I don't want you to be depressed. I want you to realize that if you encounter somebody, it's not like, oh, well, of course they're like that. They have to be that way because X, Y, Z. No, they don't. You know what I mean? And even for people who choose like the paths of narcissism and psychopathy, I get annoyed because people say stuff like, well, oh, but you don't understand. They're born that way and they don't have a choice. And I'm like, bullshit.
Oh, they do.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Like, I don't know how scary I could have become if I hadn't chosen not to, but I think I probably could have been pretty damn destructive. I'm destructive enough now, and my motives are not bad.
Well, I think in the extreme there becomes a point there you don't really have a choice yet. So if you're addicted to something so much, then you obviously can't make the choice anymore to just stop like that. So in the extremes, you know, the choice thing becomes pretty damn hard.
Well,
But that doesn't
when
say
is the
anything about the
choice?
baseline where we start.
When do you have the choice? That's a different question, right? So the addict, right? People are held responsible for their actions if they're a drunk driver, not because they had their faculties while they were driving, but because they had their faculties when they started drinking. They knew this was a possibility and they didn't do everything in their power to make sure they didn't have access to their keys once they got smashed, right? And so I think there's something similar going on. Well, I think that holds in a lot of situations. You have a point at which people who have affairs, well, when could you not help it? Right? Oh, I just couldn't help myself. Oh, we fell in love. When could you not help yourself? Because at some point you could have stopped that thing, right? Your addiction got out of control. Okay, don't walk to the bar. Don't, the problem was you got out your house when you were craving a drink. Don't go for a walk when you're craving a drink because you're accidentally going to take you to the bar, right? My brother was an alcoholic, kind of still is, right? Anyways, same thing I think with like narcissism, psychopathy. I think there are stages in our life where you have moral choices. People who go through hell don't have to become assholes. This is a message brought to you by Dusty.
Where do you think morality comes from? So you're saying, right? You have choices, and
I
those
think so.
the decision that you make upon, well, morals, what is good and what is bad. Where do you think morals come from? And this question is especially important with a secular background.
Well, if you have a secular background, you might be screwed when it comes to that question because morals come from God, right? It's just, I think it's very difficult to make a case for morality from a secular standpoint. It's a problem that, you know, this is why JBP and Dawkins have some struggle. It's one of the reasons. I don't think JBP is totally innocent in that conflict, by the way. But
You
Dawkins
mean the
has
last interview that he had a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, poor old Dawkins. Anyways, so oh, okay, I'm not saying Dawkins is innocent either. Okay, there's two sides. But Dawkins has a serious problem because why does he can't explain value. He can't explain value, hierarchies of values, right? Jonathan Pajot went after him for that and articulated it well on X later. He was like, he says he's interested in the science that brings him to the moon, but he doesn't ask why he wants to go to the moon. Why aim up? Why explore? Right? Why morality? Why morality? Doesn't nature is not all that kind. You know, people are like, oh, we just need to be like nature. We just need to be loving like the animals. Screw that. Don't love me like the animals. The animals eat their young. I was raised by wolves.
You've clearly never seen some chimps together.
Never seen the chimps. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, morality comes from God. And the best example of it, of God's morality articulated, comes from the teachings of Jesus. And the 10 Commandments are solid. 10 Commandments and the teachings of Christ to give yourself a good baseline. The Bible's complex.
When we approach it from a secular standpoint, so when you would ask the question, like, okay, how do you define, good from bad? One of the definitions I think that you could bring forward from a more secular standpoint is, the thing that is bad is the thing that hurts people, which is not necessarily always true, because hurting to a degree, is also needed in some contexts. We hurt our bodies in order to grow stronger. That's why we go, that's why we go to the gym. So it's not a universal thing. But in general, yeah, you could make the argument like, the thing that is taking advantage of people, or the thing that hurts other people, the thing that's those kind of things. You can define good or bad with that.
Why so now you're talking. Well, because now you're talking about the good of the community. You're talking about communal good, right? So communal benefit as the pinnacle. But
yes,
but then you get, wear your mask for the higher good. Like that can be exploited pretty easily, right? Yeah, so you have to be careful with that too. Is good simply that which does not harm the other? Well, that gets complicated because that can actually become evil.
If misused, yeah.
If misused, right? Yeah, I really think I bear no ill will towards like the secular community, but I think the secular community has a real problem in defining morality. Usually, what they do is they borrow Christian morality, which is kind of what Jordan Peterson's done, although his deeply held belief system is not obvious, to say it in a way that he might say it. It is not obvious to me that Jordan Peterson is an atheist. He doesn't seem to be an atheist. I don't know what the hell he is. I'm not sure he does either. But he has definitely borrowed Christian morality, and he holds it as true before even being convinced that it's true in the Dawkins sense. Right? Whereas I think it's true in both. That was a tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, what he seems to do is, I'm curious what you think about this. To me, what he seems to do is he's not. I wouldn't classify JBP as a Christian per se.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. But I would say that he definitely understands the value in biblical texts, and understands why they are important, and understands why they are the center of our society. And, the whole idea that he laid out about, the cross being a symbol for sacrifice, which is what we've built our society around. That makes, to me at least, that makes perfect sense. Because that's exactly what we do when we work, when we are away from our loved ones, when we give up the pleasures now in order to grow in the future. That's sacrificing, and that is what humans are doing. That is what we are doing in order to build our society and to grow better as a society. So it makes perfect sense if you put it in that light, that the biblical text, even from somebody who is not, well, religious between air quotes, him or herself, it makes perfect sense to see the value in those kind of texts. Another great example that he often uses, and I this is one of my favorite examples as well. I really like this story. That's the story of Cain and Abel. The story of pure sacrifice in order to build something that is better than what we have now, versus the destructive resentment um, um, towards that which is good.
Yes.
It's a very powerful narrative.
Very powerful narrative. I agree with what you just said, and I would articulate it with a slightly different nuance because you said that Jordan Peterson is really good at explaining why it's important. I would disagree. I would say Jordan Peterson is almost philosophically scientific. He's very good at explaining that it is important. But I think what he's
Right.
wrestling with is the why. He understands that the Christian narrative has all that value and has accomplished all that good scientifically, philosophically, with a scientific mindset. He's identified that. I think he came at it with almost a philosophic scientific method. I don't know how to articulate it, but
No,
I
that
don't
makes
think
sense.
he knows. But I think he wrestles with why though. Why is it true? And so then he gets into these really strange these philosophical knots where he'll say, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be true because it's true. It's true because of it, because it's life affirming. It's true because it's life affirming, right? But it's much more logically coherent to say it is life affirming because it is true, which is where he just can't go. Like Buddy just can't go there. So I think I'm really curious. I haven't read We Who Wrestle with God yet, but I can't. I'm gonna go through so many pens. I need at least 3 ballpoint pens to go through that because I'm probably gonna be conversing with him wildly in the margins. If you can't tell, I love Jordan Peterson. One of my favorite things to do with people who I love is to argue with them. So I argue with his thoughts.
Do they also enjoy that?
Not always. That's why I said I'm a pain in the ass, and I know it. I asked.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes I deserve what I get.
Right. Right. Well, you definitely keep things interesting.
Oh, Lord have mercy, you poor souls.
All right, let's go back to you.
Okay,
So
hi.
where we stopped was when you were 14 years old on high school. I'm not sure if you want to linger on here. We can also jump ahead. So this is completely up to you. But let's go back there.
Okay, I might backpedal a little bit because I mentioned before, I just want people to understand the extent of the crap that God's brought me through. I mean, I had to put work into it, but I don't know, I want people to be able to have some hope. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
just to give like an overview, when I was 4, my mom, she was in her 30s. She had a boyfriend who was in his late teens who committed an assault of a sexual nature against my sister, who was 14 at the time. And when my mom found out that my sister had been assaulted in that manner, she became wildly jealous and accused my sister of being, a hoe, a whore, a
Jealous.
slut. Well, yes, because my mother's boyfriend was in his late teens, and my mother was now in her mid 30s, late 30s. And he sexually abused my older sister who was 14. And when my mother found out, she said, "You're trying to steal my men from me. How dare you, SLUT." And I was there for this, so I witnessed this. I would have been 4 and 3.5 to 4. And yeah, so my mom grabbed my sister. My sister was hyperventilating. I remember this. My poor sister, who recently passed. Um, Drugs. No wonder. So when I say people have a choice, by the way, I have so much compassion for like drug users and addicts. I just want them to have hope that they can overcome. It's not like I'm like, if there's nuance to what I'm saying, I want them to know they can recover. Anyways, I watched my mom
Mhm.
throw my sister to the ground and she was hyperventilating, making sounds like an animal. Her grief was so deep and she was so scared of my mother and so ashamed and couldn't explain herself. And my mom put me in the car and my sister in the car, drove to the police station, threw my sister in front of a crowd of onlookers, including police, and said, "I don't want this slut, you take her. She's ruining my life and stealing
Jesus.
my men." And so I watched my sister have a full blown nervous breakdown. I was, 3.5 or 4. And everybody in that police station looked more scared of my mom than any of the criminals there. The criminals were scared of my mother. And she was She would have made a fantastic actress. Actually, she did some acting. Um, Anyways, and then we left my sister there. My sister was put in the foster system. My mom just got rid of her. Like, you're a nuisance here. So my sister went from being sexually abused by my mom's, it's like an illegal relationship. My mom was basically a pedophile, if the stories are to be believed and the ages are correct that I've heard. So allegedly. Anyways, my sister went from being a victim of that to being humiliated at the police station to being abandoned there. My dad was out of the picture, who had been her.
Humiliated at the police station. By whom?
Well, yeah, my mother. She told everybody that my sister had stolen her boyfriend when really my sister had been sexually abused.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she was literally abandoned there. Like, we literally brought my 14-year-old sister to the police station and we just left her there. Like, I never saw her again. Like, I didn't see her for years. And my mom warned me never to be like my sister. And then very eerily, she said, and never be like me. It was very eerie.
Never be like me.
Very, I don't even, was she demon possessed? I don't know. But like, so when I say I've had some pretty bad experiences later,
What was the context? Why did she say that?
we were just,
Did
after she threw my sister away to the police station, she said, never be like your sister, be a good girl, and never be like me. I don't know. I didn't ask questions.
What do you think?
Well, my mom knows she's not a good person if you catch her on an honest day. So I think she knew what she was doing was wrong. Right, but she enjoyed it anyways. That's what's interesting.
Right.
She was really like, she was like a cat who ate the canary. She was real pleased with herself. So I don't want you to think that she was like, oh, like, it wasn't. It was just like this really eerie, don't you ever be like me. But she was like super pleased with herself. She was like, oh, I got rid of that problem. You know.
Right.
Yeah. That's mom. So warm and snuggly, you know. She was just weird. Also, the neglect. I was not allowed to bathe. So she got the fresh bath water and she would leave like 2 inches of bath water in the bathtub. And if I wanted to clean myself, I would have to use cold, old bath water that had been there for days. So I was a very dirty kid. I had no friends. I had hand-me-down clothes with holes in them. My hair was not brushed. My teeth were not brushed. All my baby teeth rotted out, pretty much. I was not bathed. She would keep frozen hot dogs in the freezer, and if I needed food, I could go get myself some frozen hot dogs. Sometimes I'd come home from school and she wouldn't be there. I would break into the house through the window. I'd grab a ladder. This is now when I was like 6 or 7. And I spent a lot of time in the woods. Just like wandering and praying and looking at nature. Yeah. Like, life was really interesting. And then yeah, not good. She broke me finally. I was really hard to break. I was very stubborn. Right? She did weird. So she experimented with ways to control me because I was impossible to control. I would just look at her and be like, no.
Were you stubborn?
Very
so were you stubborn, or would you rather say that you became resilient because of the experiences?
I was both. It's not like I was like a perfect child. I think if I'd been raised in a good environment, I would have been a very willful, stubborn child. I happened to be raised by an abuser, which, you know, colored my worst traits with a little bit of moral virtue that I'm not sure they would otherwise be colored with. I'm sure I was a difficult child, but I always wanted to do what was right. I was very conscientious. I was at the top of pretty much all my classes.
I find it very interesting about you, to be honest, and I would like you to think about why you think that is, because okay, let me try to formulate this properly. For a very long time in your childhood, you had pretty bad experiences, and the light that you had in your life, well, one of the lights that you had in your life was your grandmother introducing you to Christianity, which became for you like a guiding light forward that kept you straight, kept you, balanced you back on the path when it was needed. Let's say. and you held that until you were, or in the story at least, until you were like 14 on school, where people were warning each other like, don't mess with Dusty, but at the same time you had that voice in your mind that said, don't hurt people or don't misuse your gifts. You mentioned. Um, okay, with that context, why didn't you turn bad? If you have children who, for a very long time, were in tough situations, it's very likely that those children, they grow up and be abusive themselves. They start bullying others. They start being a bother to other people. It sounds to me like you didn't do that, and you made a pretty conscious choice to not do that. And so the introduction to Christianity is one side of the story, but my question essentially is, why did you stay true
To God,
to life, to others, to people,
I don't
to
know
the
that I
choices that you
always
made,
did.
to your morality?
I've tried. Well, my morality, I've done pretty decent job. Ish. Like, you know what I mean? As well as somebody can. Why did I say I love God? Like, it's not, I don't, this gets, I sound like a cheese ball, but like, it's not like impersonal. Like,
Mhm.
I love God. Anytime I turn to pray, it's like I get that light back. I love God. I can't consciously betray God. And God loves people. And I mean, I also love people, especially like the more you understand them, how do you not love them? And all of creation, everything is so beautiful. And why would you want to? How could you destroy things that are so good and made by a God who is so pure and so full of love? And even like you could probably hear my cat again. Even I can't hear it fully because of the earbuds, but I'm like, is my cat? Oh no, it's somebody raking this time. Okay, that's better. I'm hearing raking. Um, I just I just love things. Like I love beauty, and I used to wander to an old abandoned barn that was, 15-minute walk from my house. We lived kind of in the country, and it was full of abandoned feral cats, and I would bring cream and I would just sit for hours with this thing of cream there and just wait for the little things. Like I think I just love stuff too much. Like I think that's probably something God gave to me. I just love stuff too much, which is why mom had me kill my kittens. Um to like break me finally. So I think I just love stuff. So whenever I would have a moment of understanding, if it would come to my understanding that I was doing harm, I felt sick. Like sick. I can't enjoy that. I'm not sadistic by nature, I guess is what I'm saying. So I didn't inherit that sadism gene.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you would
Or
have this.
maybe it was
You would have
God.
this guilt. You would have this guilt pushing on your shoulders.
Not even on my shoulders. I would feel physically sick. I have no desire to harm people. Yeah.
Let's make a beautiful turn
Okay,
because
let's
it's not
go.
doom. It's not all doom and gloom like you, to quote you from earlier in the conversation.
It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about your openness, and you are clearly quite a creative person.
Hmm.
Um, what inspires you?
What inspires me?
Hmm.
Uh, Everything. I have a friend in New Zealand who told me it was like I wanted to eat the world. Everything is so
Eat the
interesting.
world.
Everything is so interesting.
Hmm.
Everything is so damn interesting. I like people the most. I like everything that's beautiful. It Is there anything that doesn't inspire me? I hate ugliness. I am very miffed with Elon Musk right now. How dare he? Can I put my Greta
Myth?
Thunberg? Elon Musk. Oh, miffed.
What what
You know, like
what is the word
miffed.
miffed?
Ah, I'm glad you
Like
asked.
annoyed?
Yeah. I'm very miffed with him. Very aggravated. Because the aesthetic he's
Okay.
promoting is just ghastly. How dare you? Where's the Greta Thunberg meme when you need it? How dare you, Elon?
You destroyed my childhood.
You destroyed my childhood. You're destroying the future with your ugly aesthetic. How could you take
Mm.
Twitter with its beautiful blue bird and turn it into an X? Oh my gosh. People don't give him a hard enough time about his aesthetic
You sound
peculiarities,
like
but
you sound like you're a fan of the Cybertruck as well.
oh my gosh. I saw one in my neighborhood the other day. I never laughed so hard.
Really?
It literally it looks like somebody took like a low resolution graphic from a 1990s video game and like stuck it in a parking lot.
It really does. Like I joke around with it. If you cut a hole in the top, right, and you put like a machine gun in it, it looks like the Warthog from Halo. I don't know if you're a gamer, but for any gamer who ever played
Not a
Halo,
gamer, but I've
Google the
seen
Warthog.
images.
That's the Cybertruck.
Listen, listen. And it's not helping, is it? Is it helping with the people who are like, oh, y'all are Nazis. Y'all are gonna take over the world with war. And then he comes out, he rolls out his like mini tank, and he's like, none of you will have control of your own vehicles within 20 years. Our programming will drive it for you. And I'm like, how is it that the people who don't want like digital currency and ID and one world systems and who want everything to be organic and healthy, how is it that they are not calling out Elon for wanting to like automate everything? Like, it's crazy. The cognitive dissonance is wild. It's like, so it's bad when they do it, but Elon gets a pass? Somebody sit this man down. I'm telling you. It's out of control. It's out of control. It's got, you could do it in space, but I know we don't want to live on Mars. You could, maybe some people in Texas and Arizona or from the Sahara Desert want to live in Mars, but the rest of us don't want to live on damn Mars. What is this man's problem? Sorry.
Yeah, he makes very interesting design choices. Do you know the story about I don't know which rocket it was, but one of the rockets he wanted it to be more pointy. Did you hear that story?
No, but there's only so much you can do with a rocket.
Yeah. So the story. So long story short, he had this interview with someone, and he said that this rocket should be more pointy. And the reason why he said that is because it was a reference to the movie The Dictator. Because in The Dictator, you have the dictator walking up to like this nuclear bomb developer or whatever, and he's like, if it's round, something like it puts a smile on the faces of our enemies. It needs to be more pointy because pointy is scary. That's what he said. So Elon Musk was like, let's do the same thing. Let's make it more pointy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That happened.
Oh my gosh. This is hilarious. We live in the most absurd times. Like, it's so dangerous, but it's so damn interesting. I just don't know what to do with myself sometimes. I'm scared of living in Canada. I feel like one of these days I'm going to get thrown into one of these repurposed COVID containment facilities for re-education myself because I don't trust my damn government. But I hope not. And aside from the fact that everything is terrifying, it certainly is interesting. Like, it's very interesting. I hope we don't all die. That'd be great.
That'd be pretty wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? So let's question about Elon Musk's design choices. What do you think of the regular Teslas?
The regular Teslas, they just look slippery like some of the other stuff. Like, I've never been a huge fan of the overly, they are slippery, right? Like, they look kind of like a tadpole with some extra curves, like a voluptuous tadpole with wheels. Right? Very aerodynamic, I guess, is what he would say, and very futuristic. Like, okay, but everything can't look that way. I miss the grandeur of things that take a long time to build. Things that take a long time to build just seem to be prettier. There's something about time. I would love to do a study actually on a correlation between like aesthetic quality and time. I'm sure there's There's got to be something. Even AI. You know, when I see AI art now in my feed, even in Peterson Academy, I see the AI art and my brain just like skips over it because it all just kind of looks meh. Like it all looks the same.
Yeah,
I
it
feel
does.
that way. I feel that way about the Tesla. It's like you get these really modern cars and they all kind of just end up looking the same. Anyway, so it's
But
not too bad.
everybody does it also. I opened my LinkedIn feed this morning and I saw the general manager of some kind of Microsoft division. He posted a 12-year celebration, um, 12-year celebration post for the Copilot team with like a pie, like a cake, like a celebration cake. ChatGPT, 100%. 100% ChatGPT generated, the text being all fuzzy and walking, letters missing, that kind of stuff.
It just
Uh,
doesn't. It's just even when it's done well, it's
I mean,
just
it kind of
not
makes
the.
sense. Yeah.
It's just not. It's just missing something. It's just
Yeah,
just
I agree.
missing
I
it.
agree with you. So I agree with you. I mean, I love the way Teslas look. I think they're absolutely beautiful. But your point is sounds to me very valid. The point of effort and time. We. Yeah, exactly. We enjoy beautiful things that people clearly put effort and time in. Um, Nobody feels. Do you think it's even possible that? So okay. So let me phrase this question in another way. If you look at like famous paintings, from like the Mona Lisa from Leonardo da Vinci, or yeah, or some other famous paintings. So far, my painting knowledge, you can really look at it and like you have a sense of awe. It just looks beautiful. It looks deep. It looks like there's like 30 different layers in there, right? It looks incredibly beautiful. And like I went to the what was the name of the house? The So I forgot what the name is because my artistic knowledge is not up to par. But in the Netherlands, in The Hague, which is where all these governments are and whatever, it's like a legal capital of Europe or even of the world or whatever. Is where where all the war criminals, for example, also go. Anyway, point is the Mauritshuis. That's what it's called, the Mauritshuis. You My wife and I, we made the decision to open ourselves up more, to the artistic,
Yes.
because she is very quite open and quite creative. I'm not really that open and that creative. Well, open, I guess I'm a little bit in the middle, but I'm not really creative. So for me, it doesn't come natural to appreciate art. So we made we talked about that, and I wanted to make the effort to appreciate that more. So anyway, we went to the Mauritshuis, and it was actually quite surprising. I thought before we went there that I would, just walk around, my wife doing, whatever she wants to do, looking around it, and then me just being on my phone or something because I'm bored. It was actually quite the opposite.
Wow.
There were a couple of paintings that I spent a good amount of time in front of, just looking at, the details and the strokes of brushes and everything that was in it. Well, there was quite a lot of story, especially the religious one really struck me. There was
Wow.
one where you saw. I forgot I don't know what the name is, so you have to apologize. You have to apologize for that. But it was the painting of Jesus being taken off the cross after being crucified.
Hmm.
So you saw people around him, taking care of him and
Yes.
looking after his body. I also posted that. I made a picture of it. I posted it on the academy.
I remember.
Beautiful picture,
Yes.
beautiful picture, and super interesting to look at. I spent like I believe 10 minutes in front of it at least. Um, Anyway, to bring it back to the original point of AI, so it is very clear that these, to me at least, also, especially as somebody who doesn't, appreciate art that much from a natural perspective, it's incredibly clear that there is a connection to these pieces of art, to these works, for many reasons. For what they symbolize, what they mean, but also the effort that went into it. The historical context in which they were created. There were, the people
Yes.
who made them to begin with. There's a lot of reasons to really appreciate that. Do you think that people can have a meaningful connection to art that has been AI generated?
Meaningful. That's like a very precise word. So if you had said,
Hmm.
do you think people can love it? Like, I think, yes, as it advances, what came to my mind as you were speaking was this whole concept of, me and my religious fanaticism. Humans are made in God's image, and one of the interesting things about being made in God's image is we tend to make things that are in our image, or at least we try. But I think that works best with art and music, where we create things that are like a reflection of the human soul, right?
Hmm.
And even looking at the neuroplasticity course and the complexity of the human brain, and you combine that with the metaphysical aspect of humanity, we're creating something that's coming. It's literally, it's like a projector image, you know what I mean? It's like light shining through us and hitting a canvas, and this is what you get. Anything that a machine generates is going to be at best fluorescent light through a mechanistic mind onto a digital canvas. Like, it just isn't the same thing. It's not. I don't see how it can be living. You know what I mean? Like, when you were talking about the layers of paint, I thought to myself, okay, if I were to, go into engineering, software engineering, or like I would say, well, the solution to this is to have AI begin to generate layered images, right? So, like Photoshop,
Right.
you can paint in layers. So, just start creating layered images and learn how
Hmm.
people create layers and different styles of layering, different techniques. And this is how oil layers manifest. This is how acrylic layers manifest. And so you could get something that's better, right? That, like, it looks a little bit more like what a person made. So, okay, maybe somebody could look at it and they see it at a time in their life where they really need it, or a friend put in the prompts and they develop some sort of a meaningful relationship with it. I can say that just can't. I personally just can't. I feel nothing when I think of that. Like, to not, to miss out on like a person laboring over a canvas. Like, I've really wondered if original art is going to become more valuable because of how excellent and precise AI generation is. Because, like I said, everything's becoming invisible. When I look in a social feed and I see all these really cool AI pieces, none of them look impressive anymore because they're all so impressive, right? So now nothing is impressive. And then I just want to see somebody's efforts on a canvas, right? I want to see Bob Ross Monday. Give me Bob Ross Monday.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun, but it's nothing more than fun, I think. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
fancy, people having these avatars made out of AI generated images, of themselves or whatever. It's fun. It looks
Mm.
cute. It looks cool. It's awesome that it's possible. It's technologically, it's very impressive,
Hmm.
at least for what it can do right now. But yeah, a real human connection to it. It's symbolizing something that is meaningful, or it's capturing something that is deeply human. I have yet to see that from something that is AI
Ew.
generated, and I've seen quite a bit of it by now.
You just triggered a thought though. Ew. Like, what if we don't manage to get the children off of cell phones and computers fast enough, and their brains are rewired to the point that that starts to become meaningful to them? Meaning, like,
Mm.
they're making like AI boyfriends and girlfriends, probably more
Well, that's
girlfriends.
already happening.
Right? Well, no. So if they're doing that, if people get
Hmm.
so, if we allow the machines to like deform us and to mutilate our psychology, um, then maybe people will start to form more attachment to the digital world because it's like what they know. Like, maybe we're just entering the matrix. Jeffrey, it's happening. We're entering the
Yeah,
matrix.
but it would
It's,
be it
yeah.
would be it would be nothing more than a cheap replacement because so the reason why we
Yeah.
appreciate art, to quote you, because I think you're absolutely right in that, is because there is time and effort into it. It encapsulates a human experience, a human connection. That is
Yes.
something that I think an AI generated image can never attain,
No.
which means it becomes automatically impossible to use that as a parameter to create a connection to an AI generated picture. because that connection doesn't exist to begin with. So if we go with that idea of being rewired because there's nothing else than AI generated pictures, if there is even a connection between those pictures, it's not the one that we just described. It can't be.
That's right.
So
It can't
it needs
be.
to be
It's
something else.
something else.
So what connects them to, what connects us as humans then to AI generated images?
Neuralink. Elon. No, that was like tongue in cheek. I'm being facetious about like what you could call it. Um,
Well, that's a very interesting addition, though, because that I'm not really sure what the applications of that are, so nothing to go
well,
too deep in.
listen
But
though, here's where it's valid because what we're describing is in a sense a kind of transhumanism, right? Turning our
yes, 100%.
turning our human relationships and our human experience into something that is other than human. And it reminds me also of the quote that I saw where the marketing team for Netflix said that their primary competitor was sleep. And the thought that I just had is, well, the primary competitor for AI and AI generated things is community, is humanity. We are the competition, right? Because in a world where, hypothetically, you had people who were trained for whatever substitute of meaning we just discussed, right? The substitute for meaningfulness, their connection to AI art or AI existence, they would have a difficult time. They'd need to want you'd have to keep the population from community, from people, and from the real thing for that competition to be strong. Because it'd be very hard. It'd be very hard to compete with the real thing if their mind and their psychology was functioning correctly. If they were brain damaged and they couldn't connect with other humans properly, which things like porn can do that, then you get a real mess. Scary, actually. Like,
yeah, I'm very curious. And curious might not be the right word, but
apprehensive.
no, not apprehensive either.
Mm.
But I'm very curious to find out what's going to happen in the very near future, because it seems to me, and this is just based on the gut feeling, so I don't have any data to back this up, but it feels to me like, so a couple of days ago there was an outage of ChatGPT. ChatGPT was not available for a little bit. People went crazy. People couldn't do their job anymore. I saw some. Well, I wouldn't describe it as panic. That will be making it more extreme. But there seemed to be quite a bit of annoyance about the fact that ChatGPT wasn't available for a little bit, at least for as far as I got that, and that gives me the signal that there is a form of dependency on it, and I do understand it to some degree, because if I look at my own if I look at my own situation, I use ChatGPT professionally as well. So for my
Mm.
job, I use it to make my life easier, but not in the sense of I don't let ChatGPT figure out what I need to do. So it doesn't
Hmm.
think for me,
Good.
because I think if it starts thinking for you, if it starts making solutions for you,
Oh my gosh. Who are you? Who's living your
not a good
life?
not a good thing. But what it is
Whose
very handy
company is
for is
it?
for
Mm.
exactly what it is very handy for is to automate certain things. So for example, if I
Yeah.
let's say my job, very very boring, so I won't go too long about it. But if I'm a project manager, so if I have to make a project plan, there's a couple of things I have to fill in, and I'm using, let's say, I don't even know, 60, 70, 80 pages worth of informational input into it. So sure, I can go through all that input and manually put everything in it, and I can pretty much do that decently, but it will take a long time. So what I do is I have certain specific queries then that I'm per subject. I'm making sure that all the information is in a very organized way gets into that document, and I double check everything, right? Because one of the things that you have to be very aware of is that whole dreaming and hallucination aspect,
Wow. Yeah.
where stuff can get made up. You have to be really aware of that. So I know what I'm doing. I'm aware of the information that's being put in, and I double check everything. So quality management, on a quality management level, the stuff is sound. It's good. But it does save me a whole lot of time of stuff that I know how to do, but would just take way too long. So that for me is an application, but it doesn't think for me. Where I think it becomes a problem is where it thinks for you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that you're in high school and tomorrow there's a test coming. And you want to know what all the answers are, just ask ChatGPT, okay, these are all the questions, give me all, or with Peterson Academy, what we are doing, right? You can easily put all the questions into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, like, okay, these are the four options, what is the correct answer?
Even in
Sure,
the
you can do
feed,
that.
you never know how many people, especially people who are insecure, are
Hmm.
even like posting and commenting things based on feedback they've received from AI, or it's very tricky. And what stuck out to me about what you just said is, well, the obvious fact that you already know how to think, and a generation is not a very long time, and it would not take very long for us to end up with a generation that has not learned how to think because they've been dependent on it from the beginning. You know how to think,
Yes,
right?
that's pretty scary.
And people can forget how to think. Like, I actually just don't use Chat GPT. I seriously dislike AI, but there's
Hmm.
reasons for it. Part of it is the way I'm wired. So for instance, when I was a child, we learned about ambidexterity in school. This is an example. I'm explaining to you why I don't like AI, and it's just kind of I come by it honestly. They explained about ambidexterity, and they were like, "Oh, and most people can only write with one hand," and they had us as an experiment try to write with our left hands. I did it pretty okay. They were like, "Oh, you're ambidextrous. You can use either hand," and you didn't even really notice that it was much of a problem. And then they said, "Oh, because it uses the other side of your brain." So what did I do? I went on this like for a couple of years. I would on a semi-regular basis write with my left hand upside down and backwards in my journals because I figured it was doing something good for my brain, right? So,
Fair enough.
well, why wouldn't you? So that's that's kind of how I think, and I was that way even as a kid. I was like, "Oh, this is going to make me smarter. This is going to make me stupider, so I just won't do it." I don't want to get why would I want to do things an easier way that is not going to like better me? Like it's not going to, because this is me living this life and I only have one. And anything I create or do or don't do, this is when it's happening. And
Hmm.
if I am allowing myself to atrophy, like, physically or mentally, what the hell good does that do me? Like, I just don't, my
Hmm.
cost benefit
Hmm.
analysis doesn't line up. Like, efficiency, I guess I don't value efficiency very much. I value what is this process doing to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. To me, it also feels it feels like if you don't do the job anymore. So if you don't think about what you need to do anymore yourself, and you let everything do by an I would feel you literally feel your brain degenerating. Like for me, that would it's like it feels like cheating,
It
right?
is
It's
like
like
cheating. And you're a marionette. Jeffrey, it's reverse Pinocchio. We have this old
reverse Pinocchio.
Pinocchio. It's like, I'm not a puppet, I'm a real boy. And now we have like the real boy wanting to be a puppet. We have reverse Pinocchio.
Mm.
Very, very
Hmm.
strange culture.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I like that. I could riff on that. I think that's a
Reverse
thing.
Pinocchio. It's the first time I'm hearing that one.
Oh, it just came to me. There, Jordan Peterson in my mind. Where did it come from? Where are these thoughts
Hmm.
coming from if it just comes to you?
Uh, yeah.
Um, who is really
As long as
thinking
you're
it?
as long as you're open for that voice, you will hear a whole lot of interesting things.
Jordan Peterson gets really tripped out. It's really great. But yeah, it is like
Yeah,
reverse
yeah.
Pinocchio. Anyways, oh, you're so fun to talk to once we get going, man. This is great fun. I love Peterson Academy. The nerds, man. The geek shall inherit the earth. That's not in the Bible. But yeah.
One other thing came to mind what you just said about writing things upside down and backwards.
Yeah,
I
why not?
heard Andrew Huberman. I'm not sure when it was. It was quite a while ago, but he said something. I don't even know what the topic is anymore. But it was something about keeping your mind sharp or like making sure that you stay on top of your game, something like that.
Yeah.
And what he said is a very good practice to do is if you're right-handed, use your left hand like once every week or something like that to brush your teeth.
Yeah, exactly. I
Or
do
of
stuff
course,
like
if you're
that.
left-handed, to use the right hand. Yeah.
Yeah. If I get tired while I'm painting, like I'm working on new painting. So I started this. It's not done yet. Um,
Ah, wonderful.
yeah, that's gonna be my sister when it's done. That's Dusty grieving, Dusty mourning. But when I get tired, I'll just switch to the other hand, right? And I
Hmm.
have my boss laughed at me. He's like, "We need to order you work supplies." I'm like, "I need a right and a left-handed mouse because I switch hands." Right? Right now I use my left hand for it. Another thing that I do that's really fun.
Really, while working, you switch your hands.
Yeah, yeah, I use about half the day I use my left hand, sometimes arbitrarily. Like I'll
Okay.
just switch hands. Yeah. So
Okay.
I can use a mouse, any kind of mouse with both hands. I can also
Hmm.
use I can use a right-handed mouse with my left hand too. Like just switch the
Hmm.
fingers for the
Hmm.
commands, but yeah, I'm just a total nerd basically. Um but another trick that I use is like while I'm working, I'll memorize numbers and codes. Like instead of like I might hit control C, I might copy it. But I'll also have it memorized and I'll write it down I'll write it down first to see if I got it right. Like I'll take the extra time to memorize it,
Hmm.
jot it into a form, and then double check. And if I got it wrong and it's ticking me off, then I might copy paste. But
Right.
just to try to
Right.
not be dumb. Yeah.
What would it take for you to start using AI?
I
So
use it
let's
a
play
little
devil's
bit.
advocate. What do you,
How
why would you
much?
use it? Hmm.
So I've used it a little bit. So I've used it for fun, like to join in the meme game of ask ChatGPT to draw a day in your life or whatever. I was like, oh,
Right. Hmm.
I feel excluded. I feel I am subject to peer pressure. I am easy to manipulate. I too am going to use AI. So like it doesn't take much. You know what I mean? Like I'll do it for that. Um it would take a lot for me to use it like regularly though. Like the most I'm comfortable, kind of creating macros and stuff like this, stuff that I have control over. Maybe I'm just a control freak. I don't want a machine thinking and doing stuff for it would take a lot for me to give to allow technology to have agency in my work would take a lot. It
Hmm.
depends on how it's functioning. I like what you're saying. You're like you'll use it for efficiency, but you're very like if you are AI's boss, you're a micromanager, right? It would kind of be like that. I would be like I would really and if it was like an AI, if I knew how to build AI, I had built and trained it, then maybe.
That's actually a good point. I think if I would talk to a person the way I talk to ChatGPT, I will drive the person absolutely insane
Yeah.
because that is the voice of a micromanager. I didn't think about that actually, but that is very, very true.
Yeah. Right? Because it's like a robotic assistant. It's
Yeah,
your
you need to do
employee.
exactly what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. So what kind
Exactly,
of
and not
manager are you?
deviate.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You don't
Hmm.
want to be right because AI doesn't really work for you if you didn't build it. So you
Yeah.
better be a micromanager because if you're not, somebody else. This is the thing it really bothers me. There's people in my workplace even who use Chat GPT, to like generate copy and this and that. And they use it a lot in their life and people just like they talk to it and they like dialogue and they get input and I'm like it it is designed to manipulate. Like it's trained on manipulation. It's learned from the internet and the people who own these companies, you are like always the product, right? Like Google and I just don't know how you trust it. Like I have a hard time trusting people. Not well, I trust them more than you would expect actually, given like my life. Like I quite like people, but it's difficult to like, you suss somebody out and you only let them in so far and this that. How do people just like open the gate of their life to artificial intelligence that has been created by some of the worst, like the most obvious bad actors in history are some of the people at the top of these tech giants. Like I just don't get it. Sorry, I'm so
Hmm.
intense.
Do you think that goes for all AI companies? So for Facebook and for Google, those are two obvious
Do
ones,
you
but also
trust
OpenAI.
any of these people? Like, would you trust any of these people to like counsel you or like speak into your life? Like, would you? I wouldn't trust them as far as I can throw them.
So I think it's a very okay.
I'm paranoid though.
So let me. That's okay. That's okay. Let's both answer this question. How about that?
Yes, sir.
You want me to go first?
Go for it.
So I think it's a very nuanced, a very nuanced story for me personally. First of all, the first question I ask myself is which company do you trust and which one you don't, and why? And straight away, some obvious companies come forward that I will never put personal information in, and Facebook is, for example, one of those. That's one of these companies. Not for me. Thank you very much. Google. Google is Google. I'm using YouTube. I'm using Google services. I'm using the search bar. It's all well and fine, but nothing more than that. I've also never interacted with their AI. I'm not sure what the name. I think it was Bard. If was it Microsoft? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't use the Google AI, and the same pretty much goes for Microsoft. I'm not a big fan of Copilot. But that's more like a technical reason. I just don't like the way it works. I don't think
I
it's very
uninstalled it from my
handy.
computer. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you can delete Copilot from a Microsoft computer, but it doesn't matter.
you
It's
can.
not for
You
me.
just have to hack the system a little. But anyways,
Tinker
yeah.
it. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Okay. By default, a regular user would not be able to remove it, but you can, of course, force it some way or another. I do. Okay, so this is where the nuance comes in. I do believe that there are levels of trust within society that we need in order to operate properly on
That's
all
good.
kinds of different levels. That goes to food, that goes to
Yeah.
medicine, that goes to government, that goes to AI. It goes for everything. Can that be abused? Yes. Is it being abused? Hell yes. That is happening on all of those different fronts. That's happening. But that doesn't mean that the sector by itself is corrupt per se.
I like it.
And that's where the nuance comes in. So the ones I trust, the one I trust the most right now, and this is a gut feeling because I'm also kind of the guy. I'm very aware of my digital security, for example. So I'm very aware of the products, of what I'm giving. For example, what access I'm giving to apps, how my Safari is being configured. All that sort of stuff. And that also is because I have a very technical background. Also with a little bit of playing around with viruses and malware and that kind of stuff, but we won't go into that part. So I like that technicality of it. So I like having control over my data and what is being done with it. So I'm very strict with that. That said, the one for now I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with is ChatGPT. I'll start with the love part. The love part is because it's the most advanced large language model there is right now. So if you want good text output, if you want good predictionary information, to me, ChatGPT is the best out there right now. It goes also way above, for example, Grok from Twitter.
Oh yeah.
And also it's way better than Copilot. It doesn't even come close, for as far as I'm concerned, at least. So technicality is the technicals is just way better. What I also love about it is, in my case personally, I have an enterprise account. So we have very strict parameters and very strict, what's the word? Agreements on what happens to the data input that we put in it. And that data is not being used to train ChatGPT. It's not being shared. It's stored within Europe,
That's
according
good.
to the European GDPR, the privacy law, all that sort of stuff. And those are legal borders.
Good.
Which means that is where that level of trust comes in. I trust that based upon those agreements that we have with OpenAI, that they adhere to what we agreed to. So therefore I use it, and therefore I also put information in it that I wouldn't regularly share on any other platform, just because that layer of security is there.
Yes.
Well, not security, but a layer of trust. That's a better word to describe it. Hate, and the love-hate relationship, and it's not really hate, but what I don't really like, and this is also what I agree with with Elon Musk on, is OpenAI was originally, well, the word open was there
Hmm.
because it was supposed to be open source, which means everybody has access to it, everybody can use it, everybody can reproduce it. But OpenAI is not OpenAI anymore. OpenAI is very much commercial AI right now. I mean, I don't know if you read the article like last week that they are coming with a new premium plan that costs $200 a month. That's quite a bit of money.
That's a
That's
lot.
that's definitely for profit, and that's one thing. But it automatically means that the incentives are different than what you
Hmm.
would have with an open source project. And I don't want to draw conclusions here because I'm not really sure yet what to think about that. It's just something that I'm like, that's interesting. That requires some thought to decide if that's good or bad. And right now I'm tilting more towards the slightly skeptical side, I suppose, with that. But it doesn't stop me from using it. So it's a bit of a vague answer because I don't have a very specific, well thought out answer for you yet. But this is kind of how I'm looking at AI
No, it's good.
right now. But that layer of trust is key, is absolutely important. If that wasn't there, I wouldn't use it. Not at least to the
Yeah.
level I'm using it right now.
Well, and a lot of your layer of trust is not actually trust, it's the existence of laws and regulations. This is one reason why I'm not an extreme libertarian. And I have some concerns about in a technological age, there are certain types of regulatory bodies that I think you need. Like you need
Hmm.
regulations and you need people examining things quickly because of the rate at
Yes.
which things are developing. I like so much of what you said. I agree with the need for a trusting society. I I kind of grieve the loss of it because I mean up until a few years ago I trusted like cops and establishment. It's wild. Like I would see cops and be like, "Oh, I feel so safe." And like after the trucker protest got cracked down on in Ottawa and stuff like that, now I see them and I'm like, "I don't trust you and I don't trust the state." And everything is different for me than it used to be. And so I like when like I've had a Facebook account for years and um totally trusted it without like any problem. Do you know what I mean? Like my whole flippin' life has been on that thing, and I've kind of just been like, it is what it is. Like Facebook owns my life, um, and but I've changed, and so I guess what I would say is I'm concerned with AI about what it is doing to us. Like I'm concerned about the programmers and what in small increments, especially like the more I learn about psychology, it just kind of makes it affirms my instinct that and because I grew up with psychopaths, I know what people would do. Like I remember when my grandpa was in the hospital once, my mom was like, they're probably keeping him on life support to harvest his blood because he has a rare blood type and it's worth money. And I remember my aunt, who was a good person, was like, that is so sick, only you would think of it. But the problem is, these kind of people do have power. Like my mom's not entirely wrong because psychopaths are really good at getting into the top of corporations and companies. And so knowing what I know of human nature and knowing what I know about psychology and seeing what I've seen since COVID, I can't trust this stuff. Like I've just taken a huge step back in the amount of trust that I'm willing to give to it. Really, I mean, even with Peterson Academy, I hope, I hope it, the social aspect goes good, but I don't know for sure that it will. Right? Like I'm I hope I'm not the most extreme sort of conspiracy theorist, but I'm certainly not trusting. Yeah, and it's a lot of it is based on what I've seen the past 3 years. I value quick adjustment. Like if like even in my life right now, I'm readjusting all kinds of assumptions I've had about how I should live my life and practice my faith, just based on the poor decisions I made surrounding my marriage and my divorce. And um, it hasn't shaken the core of my faith, but I'm like, okay, there are things that I was wrong about. I love that ability. I love the ability to be like, I was fooled, I was wrong, because then you can adjust and learn and grow. And I feel that way with technology. So I used to be a lot more like, oh, it's necessary and I don't want to be behind on progress, but just based on what I've seen, man. So that's where I stand with that. I just maybe part of it is being in Canada too. Like the way things went down in Canada during COVID was that would be its own conversation. It was wild, the change I saw in people, and it was wild.
Yeah, I've heard some horror stories about that.
It was wild. Yeah. We're
Yeah,
dark. Our conversation's
especially
so
the trucker
dark.
protest was pretty bad.
I lived there. I was right there. It was the protest was so great. It was the greatest thing ever. And the crackdown literally traumatized me. I have friends who got hit and pepper sprayed in the face, and if I'd been there, I would have been injured. I'm glad I didn't go. I had to go through police checkpoints to get home in my neighborhood. They were like, ask you questions to find out if you had anything to do with the protest, and you might get like taken into the station or something if you. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
and not just that. I believe they. So correct me what I'm saying is wrong because I just got snippets from the information, but apparently the truckers were labeled as terrorists,
Yes.
and because that happened, they froze their bank accounts, they took away their
Yes.
children, it broke
Yeah.
their relationships, it broke their community.
Yes.
It and
No, I.
everybody who I believe so I don't remember what the name of the fund was, but I know that there was a kind of like a
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe page. Yeah, and everybody who and it was to support the truckers
Yeah.
and
And give,
everybody
send,
who
go.
exactly and all that money got taken by the government and
Mhm.
well who knows what happened to that.
Yeah. And then the government seized all the money. And so then they opened up another one with
Right.
Give, Send, Go, which is an American company.
By American you mean United States company, right?
Yes. And
Right. Okay.
and then that got seized and hacked, and the list of donors and their addresses, they were taking the list of Give, Send, Go donors. They were organizing it by postal code, and they were posting people's names and email addresses within their postal code neighborhoods. They were stapling it to telephone poles, telling people these are our enemies. You need to go after them. These are the people
Wow.
who supported the terrorist truckers. And I haven't pretended online like I'm not for that stuff. So I would really like to move to the States one day if they get their act together and if I'm able to, because I don't, Canada does actually scare me, to be honest. But no, it was crazy. People in our neighborhood, it was like they would lock you up, no problem. I saw a dark side of humanity that just Germany 1933 does not surprise me. It was, dude, it was crazy. I've never lived through anything like it. It traumatized me. Like I only started to get over. I probably wouldn't have married the person I married if I hadn't been in like total trauma mode. Like I need a protector. you know.
We had a similar situation in the Netherlands that was actually inspired by the trucker situation. I'm not sure if you heard about
Yes.
it. It was with the
Your
farmers.
farmers. I love your farmers.
Yeah, that was quite the situation with the farmers going all the way to The Hague, which is where our political system is based. They were pretty heavily demonized
Yeah.
over here. Yeah,
It's scary to
yeah.
see what people will do.
Well, it cost a lot of so. Yeah, let's not go too deep into this because I'm just not well read enough on this subject. But what it felt like is a lot of people were personally very annoyed at the farmers because the farmers were using their truckers, their how do you call those things?
Tractors.
Tractors. Yeah, to go on the freeways to The Hague, right? So they were blocking the
Yes.
freeways, and everybody who was stuck in traffic because of that got very annoyed, obviously, and I get that. And that happened a couple of times, and over the course of I believe a year or 1.5 year, maybe or something like that. So people were annoyed, and I understand that. And it was used as a very big that was used as a very big reason to demonize the farmers,
Sure.
and they were never labeled as terrorists. So that level that you just described didn't happen over here. But what it boiled down to, I believe, was that the government would. Okay, so I think I can walk through this in a bit. So in the European Union, there was a law to limit the amount of nitrogen. So, so in Dutch it's called stikstof. It's nitrogen in English, because apparently nitrogen dawns down the earth, and it's not very good for plants and all that sort of stuff. Now I don't know if that's true or not. Doesn't matter. But that was the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it came forward that Netherlands was a producer of a lot of nitrogen because of the farmers. This is not saying anything about the efficiency of our farmers and the fact that we supply a lot of
I
food,
know.
export a lot of food. That
Yeah.
fact for now is not relevant. That was set aside. It was just looked at the nitrogen, like, hey, you are producing too much nitrogen. It goes above the threshold, so you have to limit that. And the Dutch government got to a point where they tried to stop that for a long time, up until a certain month or year, where they couldn't do that anymore, and they had to enforce the law that was on a European level. And that's when some proposals came forward that made the farming business pretty impossible for the farmers.
Yeah.
Like, I believe the numbers were like 1/4 or 1/3 of all the farmers would have to close their businesses or sell voluntarily, between quotation marks. They would have to get rid of a lot of their livestock, because apparently cows, exhume a lot of nitrogen, which
Those
makes the problem
cows.
larger. Yeah, those cows, those bad cows,
Bad cows.
bad cows, those sort of things. But there was a lot of. So I don't know the details of it, but bottom line is the farmers are pretty damn desperate. They were very,
Yeah.
very desperate, and they were put in an impossible position where they couldn't maneuver out anymore. Um, and that was terrible to see. And on top of that, they were being demonized, and that was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it with dictators and farmers, man? Because the food controls the people, I guess, and they want real estate. Disgusting.
There's a good reference to Stalin that you made there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's wild. Well, even in Canada, the truckers, that's supply. It's that same working class, useful people who actually accomplish things and do things. Totalitarians hate it.
Yeah, this is where a
Dictators hate
certain
it.
person that we both. Yeah, exactly. This is where a certain person that we both know will bring the Cain and Abel story forward.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So is it just that? I don't even know. It's a whole other, it's a whole topic.
Hmm.
I
How's
hope things get good though.
how's so I've heard that, well, the claim that came forward primarily from JBP was that Canadians haven't woken up to the fact of what their government is doing to the country, whatever that may be. So that is also. So I have two questions for you. What, in your mind, is the government doing to the country? That's one.
Whew.
And question number two is, how is daily life currently in Canada in relationship to that idea?
Okay. Small questions. First, I just have to laugh because I just realized that when we're saying JBP, if we say JPB, it sounds like jelly and peanut butter. Like he sounds like a sandwich.
Oh,
That makes me.
you. This is one of those typical American things. I don't think we ever do that here in Netherlands, on this side of the ocean. We combine peanut butter and jelly.
Well, he just moved to America, so it's super American, and it's of course
Right. Oh yeah, that's
it's
that's true. That's true.
it's only fitting that he would sound like a delicious sandwich. So, okay, I know I'm very silly. Okay, so you asked this very serious question about Canada's government and how it's all gone to hell. So, okay, what was the first part was what has it done? So, gosh, I don't even know if it's Canada's government or if it's this whole like the globalist thing. It feels so un-Canadian what has happened. It is so strange. Growing up, Canada was so chill. Like it was so chill. We were basically America, only we thought we were a little bit better than them. And we didn't like to fight. And everywhere you went in the world, people would see your flag and be like, "Oh, you're Canadian. You guys are peaceful and we like you." And like, you know, like it was great. And I remember we used to like Remembrance Day was a really big deal growing up, right? Like remembering your veterans and all of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Canada started to go. So I was living in the States in the 2010s, because I went to Bible college in the States for 3 years. So for a lot of that, I was there. But we started to get a lot of like the woke policy. Like we've always been a very left-leaning country. So like we pride ourselves on like our health care and our care for the poor, and I was like all over it. And like conserving the environment, protect like as far as I knew I was a leftist like until 5 minutes ago. Anyways, like so Canada was all that, but and our taxes were a little high, but we put up with it because we loved our country and things were good for us. We could survive. So our whole thing, very privileged, Western privilege statement was always, well, I don't mind my taxes being high if it means that I've got this, that, and so can eat. Like, sure, tax me. My life is great, right? It just didn't matter. And then the left stuff started to get more like the stuff that our peanut butter and jelly professor started calling out with the gender ideology. And it got a little bit, so like when I was involved in theater and stuff in Canada, I would have people like find out I was Christian and be like, oh, so like, what do you think of gay people? Like it got more like that. And I was like, a lot of my friends are gay.
There we go with the group questions again.
Yeah, it was just like, it got weird. Like, so Canada started to get a little bit more like that, where if you had socially conservative religious beliefs and things like that, you were like starting to get, it got more and more cool to like kind of attack you for it. And you're just like standing there pretty much minding your own business. I mean, if you come into the church, you're going to hear a socially conservative message, but so it got a little bit more like that. And then they got louder and louder and louder. And then COVID, like that's kind of that's how I've experienced it. So things were getting really left and kind of woke. And then years ago, they started pushing for euthanasia. And I was ticked off about that when I first heard it. I've always hated abortion since I learned about it as a kid, and the euthanasia debate. And then it got pushed more. But we all kind of thought like, oh, those crazy, the really extreme ones are pushing it, but it's not really going to happen. Like, it's just the crazies. We're very tolerant. You've got all kinds of political views. They want to start killing the old people and like, but they're not really going to do it. And then they did it. And then it's like the censorship laws. It's like, oh, they're talking about it. This is how Canadians think, but they're not really going to do it. Like, that's just those radicals. And then they do it. And then, well, but they're not going to enforce it. And then they start like throwing dads in jail for like misgendering their daughters and stuff. And like people are losing custody of their kids. And then
taking the children away.
Taking the children away. And then euthanasia is a thing. And then they're offering it to veterans. And they're offering it to disabled people. And then they expand it to the mentally ill. And then they want to give it to children. And the abortions, you can have right up to full term abortions. I personally knew a girl who was like 7 months pregnant and got an abortion. I had nightmares for like weeks after.
7 months.
Yeah, she just didn't. A friend of mine wanted to adopt it. So this stuff does happen. Anyway, so things have just gotten weirder and weirder. And then COVID, and then your neighbors were friggin' eyeballing you, ready to report you. I found the one church in Canada not in Canada. I found the one church in Ottawa, that was still open and wasn't forcing you to have a vaccine passport, because I never took any of those injections. Ugh. I was really ticked about that. I don't like being told what to do, and I don't trust people who try to force and manipulate me. Perhaps a byproduct of my upbringing, right? Oh, you're trying to force me to do this? No. Like, I don't trust you. Anyways.
Yeah. This is also very interesting. Like the moment somebody is forcing you to do something, that's a moment where you should be very skeptical.
Well, you called it intent.
Yeah, exactly.
Intent.
The alternative is to provide a better opportunity, a better story that is interesting.
Yeah, but you don't have a better story because this is only benefiting you. What do you actually want? And the crazy thing about COVID was they weren't trying to hide it. They wanted you to get used to the idea that you were under their boot. That really pissed me off. Anyways, I found the only church that was like open, and I knew that if the cops raided that place, we could all get fined and thrown in jail. Like, literally, we all had a pact with each other. It was like, if the cops show up, don't bolt. We're just gonna have to. I was ready to go to jail because I don't like being told you can't practice your religion. It was friggin' crazy. And to find myself in that position, so law abiding, so like out of my relatives, perfect goody two shoes Dusty. She's so Christian. She's annoying and she argues a lot and she's, very, very annoying. But always good and has never been to jail like the rest of us. Not all of them have been to jail. Okay, not all of them have been to jail, but never became a stripper, never got thrown into prison, never became an addict. And all of a sudden, COVID hits, and I'm the infidel. I am public enemy. Like, it was so weird for me. It was so trippy. So now I live in upside down world. Like, to answer your question, Canada is upside down world. There are conservatives. Like, BC almost flipped conservative. Our conservatives are basically centrist. We're still such a leftist country, like Europe, right? Like, a lot of Europe's really quite far left. But it's like in my neighborhood, I wouldn't go out there and talk politics. There's a girl I kind of was starting to like make casual friends with at the gas station because I like to, you get to know your community. And one day it was after Trump won his election recently. She was like, well, I don't like America. I'm so glad I live in Canada. I'm like, oh, I like them down there. Like, they got a lot of spirit. She's like, she won't talk to me now when I go in. Like, that's what Canada's like. They find out. And Victoria, because I live in the Victoria area. In Victoria, they tried to have like a rally for like children's rights and keeping gender ideology out of schools. And the protesters came, the radical protesters, and the police shut it down. They had their permits and everything. And the police were like, no, you're causing trouble because look at all these protesters who are out here being violent. And so that's what Canada's like. It's, but if you're not like me, if you're not one of the, if you just believe the right things and you're a responsible citizen, it's great. Except you can't afford food.
Okay, now very. I'm very sure, Daphne, that this episode is gonna get censored.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I
You
don't
can use
really
that for
mind.
marketing.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna take a single second out. That's perfectly fine, and so be it.
Oops.
But yeah, the thing that just upsets me the most about everything that you just said is not necessarily the events themselves. Although we can definitely delve into that rabbit hole as well, because there's a whole lot of very, very bad happening there. But if you just put those things aside for now, right? The one of the big problems that I see there is we can't talk about it anymore. We can't we have no freedom anymore to voice our opinions without being cancelled or without being mobbed or without being thrown in jail to use your example. Like, we are not doing, like, this is also where the freedom of speech thing comes from. Freedom of speech, allows you to voice your mind so that you can be corrected if you are wrong. And
Sure.
that's the way that we as a society can move forward. So the moment that there's a big segment of the population, or of the topics, or of the standpoints, or however you want to frame it, that somehow we don't allow anymore to enter the battlefield of conversation, not just morally, but technically speaking, that's a pretty damn bad idea, because it means that you are, well, technically speaking, if you don't allow a certain set of information into your data set, it's very possible that you start running on assumptions. And it's very possible that down the line you start running into problems that you haven't foreseen because the information that pointed towards that wasn't taken into account.
Well, and even
That's
we
bad.
could because we're now we've been forced into our own echo chamber on the right? So I agree with you. And the other thing I was thinking, I had two thoughts with what you just said. One was that whole thing of like you can't speak. That reminds me of that intent thing again. That's playing in the back of my head. I'm like, yeah, that's really interesting. That sense of intent. But so in Canada, it was worse during COVID. But if you happen to wander into political territory in a conversation, like when this girl, all she did was that say, well, I don't like America. And that was the invitation to like, shake her hand politically, I think. And I didn't do that, right? And I could kind of feel it. I could kind of feel it that the intent was like, we're going to agree, like with a nod, right? And so you kind of always feel this intent to stifle. Like it's this, I feel in Canada that you live under this constant threshold of like intent to stifle. Like it feels so restricted. Like you just feel, it's very hard to articulate, but I just feel restricted in ways that I think if I lived in the States, I wouldn't. So there's that. And then the other thing with what you just said in the echo chamber and you're not allowed to be corrected, when we're having this conversation, realize like, so if I actually do have some family members who I am still in contact with, and I have some friends. But a lot of them were not on the same side of the COVID issue as me. Like people who are close to me, we had to just not talk about it. And if you start to talk about it, they would get weird. And that weirdness is one of the reasons why I hate AI and I don't trust it. Because I think what was done, I think the brainwashing and the programming that came out at that time has an AI feel to it. I think AI could do it better than, so what was happening there was the media was repeating certain kinds of messaging, right? And using certain kinds of like brainwashing tactics. And I watched it change people. I watched them go from reasonable thinking people who I knew to people I couldn't have a conversation with about this one thing.
Right. So let me understand. Let me try to reframe what you said, just to make sure that I understand you properly. What you're saying
Okay.
is that the people that you had a discussion with who became weird when you brought up certain topics,
Weird.
they gave AI like answers, so they became very predictable in their conversation. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
thank you for clarifying. I wasn't intending to say that. I was trying to say that one of the reasons I don't trust AI is I see a
Hmm.
similarity between what AI does in how it answers people and everybody's using it. I see it as another form of mass media. So the mass media was able to like brainwash people I know and like whole segments of Canadian society. People were like reporting, snitching on their neighbors for having grandma over for Christmas.
For yeah.
It was
Mhm.
crazy. Like that's crazy town. Crazy. Like they wish harm on their neighbor and they were like they thought that wearing a mask outside was necessary. People were getting married kissing each other through masks and crap. People went crazy and they were programmed pretty easily by mass media. AI is a more sophisticated form of mass media. And so I look at that and I say, why would I think I'm immune? Do I think that, and I wasn't, I'm not a big partaker of mainstream media and stuff to begin with.
Hmm.
I am pretty savvy. I'm very sensitive to that coercion thing, that intent. I'm really sensitive to it. Um, but why would I tempt fate? Why would I use a whole bunch of AI not knowing what it's used for? Not knowing if there's certain refrains and ideas being seeded throughout the population, just,
Okay. Okay.
seemingly arbitrarily and not. I don't trust what it's doing. If mass media, these super unsophisticated journalists doing, you know, repeating repeating slogans and mantras in ways that were like super obvious to detect, the population didn't detect it. They were brainwashed. They were like fully hypnotized by it or whatever the hell happened. People changed. So people like who were smart and who I know lost their minds. And I'm like, if the news can do that, what can AI do? People are sitting there having conversations with it, and you want to tell me we're so sophisticated that we can't tell when something is programming us? We are not that sophisticated. These people know technology, and a lot of them have backgrounds in marketing and psychology. I don't trust them from here to the front door.
Yeah. So what you're
And
pointing out is
and rant.
two elements of AI specifically. You don't trust the information that is being used to train AI. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, the output that therefore AI generates because it's based on that information, and the
Check.
effect that that information has on all the people that are using it, because that information subconsciously becomes then transferred into their mind.
Check. And number three, I don't trust that. I don't trust that the same kind of people who were behind that wouldn't do it intentionally. So, because what you just described is a little bit more passive. Like AI was trained on the media sphere, so therefore this stuff is in it. Yes. But what I'm saying is it might be a feature, not a bug. And that concerns me.
There's one thing that really, really annoyed me about ChatGPT, and let's end with the AI discussion based on that. Then, I was trying to create an AI image of a man with a mask on. and that mask had like a symbol on it or something like that. And that's what my query. Show me a man with a mask on with this specific symbol on it. What I got in return was a face mask, the corona face mask, the mouth mask. So I said, no, I don't want a mouth mask. Give me a full face mask. So the whole face is covered. That's pretty explicit. That's a very explicit command. Cover the whole face. He said, okay, sorry for the confusion. I will do it again. That's literally the reaction. Sorry for the confusion. I see what you mean. I will do it again. Something like that. And again, I got a mouth mask. I did that like 5-6 times in a row. And I tried different forms of phrasing it. It kept doing it. Not one single time did I get the full mask. I hope it stopped doing that, and I hope it starts listening a little bit better, because obviously I was just playing around with, I believe it's called Dolly, the image generator. That's the image version of ChatGPT. But that was pretty annoying. Another thing that was annoying, by the way. So I was okay. I'm not sure if I should say this out loud, but I was okay. I was very interested in how ChatGPT would think hell looked like. So I told ChatGPT, show me. Yeah, this is one of those potentially offensive things, so stop me if you want. But I asked ChatGPT, show me, I believe it's 7 or 9. I believe it's 9. Show me the 9 circles of hell, as
That's
outlined
Catholicism, but yes.
Yeah, in Dante's Inferno, the divine tragedy. Sorry, I can't do that. It might be offensive or something along those lines. Okay, well then in that case, show me any picture of hell. No, sorry, I can't do that. That might be very offensive. Yeah, dude, come on. I'm a grown adult. Officially, people that are younger than 18 can't even use ChatGPT for as far as I know. So why do you have to decide for me what's offensive to me or not? I'm literally asking you to show me a picture or how you interpret it, and that's a very practical reason, because I was very curious in how so I'm from a technical standpoint, not from a religious standpoint, from a technical standpoint, I'm very interested to what ChatGPT thinks hell is.
Of course, yes, it's interesting.
So that's like an interpretation question. Show me how you interpret how this actually is.
And that tells you what the mass mind, it tells you what the hive mind thinks, really.
Right, but it didn't do that.
No. You know why?
It's annoying.
Because the Christian concept of judgment and hell is wrong think. Bad, Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's wrong?
Wrong think.
You're not allowed to... 1984. Gotcha. Wrong think.
You're not allowed to think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's bad. Mm-hmm. That was bad.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm the worst. Am I the most conspiratorial of your guests so far? I must be so bad. Do
you like conspiracies? Conspiracy theories?
I love them. A lot of them I think are nuts.
I'm not surprised.
Well, a lot of them I think are nuts, but I don't know which ones.
What's your favorite one?
My favorite conspiracy? Well, it turned out the problem is they keep coming true. I thought the frogs are turning gay was really funny. The Alex Jones. Yeah, but it turned out to be true. I thought I had my glasses on. That was really funny. Do you ever do this when you have contacts in? That was
I stopped wearing glasses. I did this with my middle finger
for like ever, right? Yeah, and then it's like you're giving somebody the finger
for like a few months. Yeah.
Nope. Only COVID tyrants. So what was I going to say with that? I don't even remember. I don't remember the full details, but there's the alien conspiracy theories are probably my favorite, but I don't believe any of them is the thing. So I'm not really a proper conspiracy theorist. Like most of them, I'm that person who I'm like, that's bananas. That's crazy. MK Ultra stuff I'm really interested in because it's not actually a conspiracy theory. It actually happened, and 2 of the testing centers that the CIA were using were in Canada, and not only in Canada, but active around some of the time that I have relatives who were in psychiatric institutions, and so I have questions about that. Anyways, that's another story. I'm very interested in the whole MK Ultra thing, for that reason. But that's not a theory. That stuff actually happened. The alien the conspiracy theories are my favorite. Lizard people is hilarious.
Lizard people.
Yeah, but they actually believe it. That's what's wild. But I but hey, I see
Have
it.
you seen how Jonathan Peugeot puts this in perspective?
Yeah, I did. I really liked what he had to say about it. Some of what
To me,
Pajot says,
it was mind blowing.
yeah, it's good, eh?
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought so too. Well, seeing it is the only okay, that would be a whole other conversation. The only thing that sometimes I'm like, with the Pajot stuff is it sometimes leads people into, and perhaps it's unintentional, but I feel like sometimes it has undertones of like subjective truth, which I don't think is the intention,
Hmm.
but I don't like it when that happens. That's all. Well, also
And what do
because
you mean? What do you mean? Like his subjective truth?
no, so I think okay, so part of it is like we didn't get into the spiritual stuff, but I've had some crazy spiritual experiences in my life, and other people did it in my house growing up as well. And so like I believe in an actual spirit realm. And so it always kind of irritates me when people say, oh, they have this theory that like, lizard or like demonic things are like taking over. And it's just like the mammalian brain or the reptilian brain popping up and like it's da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, the only thing that bothers me is I actually believe there is a spirit realm. So like sometimes, okay, this is what I'm saying. Sometimes with Pajot, I'm not sure what he believes. Like, do you actually believe in a spirit realm or do you believe in a realm of meaning? Because they're not the same thing. And Jordan Peterson does this too, is sometimes he tries to make them the same thing, but they're not the same thing. Yes, I have now articulated that at least somewhat accurately. The realm of meaning and the spirit realm are not the same thing. Yes.
One
It's a
is more
whole,
one is more conceptual towards a pattern of humanity, and the other one is like a literal realm where spirits
literal,
roam
but
around.
not physical, right?
Hmm.
So it's not
Metaphysical.
yeah. So it's metaphysical. And the problem is, in a way, sometimes I feel like Pajot and Peanut Butter and Jelly are trying to come up with almost like a spiritual theory of a spiritual theory of everything. Do you know what I mean? Like
You,
trying
you
to.
can't you can't do this in the middle of a serious conversation.
See, I told
This
you I'm
is
in pain.
peanut butter jelly.
See, I'm a bad person, and I could have
Oh
been.
yeah, yeah.
Imagine if I was evil, the mayhem I would get up to, right? It would be so bad.
Hmm.
Okay, but
Hmm.
it sometimes feels like a spiritual theory of everything. Like they're just trying to dial it all down, like unify it all. And I'm like, but no. Like, because what if you're. No. Just no. Because what if it's not true what you're saying? Like, it might be elegant. They're trying to come up with kind of an elegant spiritual theory of everything, but I'm not interested in its elegance. I'm interested in its accuracy. And I enjoy the thought. I enjoy the thought exercise, but I'm just not sure it's true. That's my problem. And for that reason, I am a fan, but kind of not like a full-blown fangirl in PA, Peterson Academy.
Hmm.
End scene.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Maybe you will be. We'll see.
A
That's a long time to
full-blown fangirl.
go. Full blown
Listen,
fangirl, yeah.
oh my gosh, like everything they say is just like such truth. I just can't even with all the truth, guys. Like it blows my mind. Everything is just
So
like, wow.
this physically hurts.
Sorry.
Bell's
Sorry.
bad. Bell's
I'm
bad.
I'm sorry. Sorry. My apologies. That was really fun. This is a really fun conversation.
I love it. I love it. It's really good. It's really good speaking with you. We are already more than 2.5 hours in. Did you realize that?
Sorry about that.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. It's quite a story, and it really feels, and even at this point, it really feels like we are not even halfway there. To be honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my story is not necessarily the most important thing. People got a good idea of where I've come from, and it's obvious that, well, maybe it's not obvious that I'm not insane. they might hear all this and be like, yes, she went through all of that and now she is quite mad. Conspiracy theories and spirituality. Who knows what they'll think?
Why did you want to come on and tell your story?
I like to talk. That must be obvious. Um, I that is true. So I feel like my suffering has no meaning and no purpose unless I am like of some kind of use. It kind of obsesses me, to be honest. Part of that might be my conscientiousness, but also like I'm very prone to like feelings of depression. Um, I I feel the lows just as deeply as I feel the highs, and I accept that. I'm not bipolar. Um, I've I've tried to get diagnoses before just out of paranoia, and they're like, no, actually, like considering what you've gone through, they're like, even if you hadn't gone through hell, you would be emotionally healthy. Because you've gone through hell, you're remarkably emotionally healthy. Um, I just say that in case people wonder if I'm, you know, you just got to put it out there. But no, I feel deeply. I feel things really intensely. And I need pain to have a purpose. Um, and if I feel like if I share my story, and there's any value to it, either in terms of interest, entertainment, or helping people realize you can go through bad things and it doesn't have to, it might change you. It might nourish you. Like the poem that I wrote, the past can kind of nourish and, sorry, there's a cat here. It might nourish who you are, but it doesn't have to like wreck you. Maybe it's useful to somebody. And who knows? Um, Somebody might be compelled to pray because of the impact God has had on me, which is always cool. And I also think it's good to fill the internet with, these good conversations you're having with people. Right? What you're doing is worthwhile. I like what you're doing. I support what you're doing. Um yeah, and I feel the only really useful talents I have are like writing and speaking and like creative thought stuff, you know. I'm not gonna probably invent anything that like changes the world, but I can talk. So I'll do some of that since it's what I can do. But that's about it.
Well, I know for a fact that a lot of people are having a lot of fun with you around and love interacting with you, and I'm one of those. It's always a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
It's always funny. And
Thank you.
you're one of these people that when I see that you make a post or you write something, I pay extra attention. And there were a couple of
Thanks.
instances. You are one of you. You're a very interesting person when it comes to that because you are also one of these people, to me at least, that is
Mm.
very sensitive is not the right word. Accurate is not the right word, but you are very on point with calling out things that are not really, where the intent is not really pure. It seems at least,
Yeah, I'm
and
sensitive to it.
yeah, that seems to be very helpful. And generally, that turns into then a funny conversation, just like the situation that we had last time with the whole plagiarism art thing.
Right?
You had quite a time with that,
That
but
was funny.
that was funny. But yeah, long story short, people generally seem to really have a lot of fun with you
If
around.
they don't
That's
if they
also
don't hate
that also
me.
goes for me. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a really good place to wrap it up.
For
Dusty,
sure.
it was really interesting talking with you.
So
It was really
fun.
interesting hearing your story. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing that. Um, this is one of those conversations, and I'm very very sure that this is going to happen. You remember that in the beginning we spoke about this, that when you are in the actual conversation, you don't pick up on all the nuances in the actual conversation.
Right.
Uh, I'm
Yes.
very sure that this is one of those, 100%.
Cool. I want to watch it
So
back too. Like this will be really interesting. You ask a lot of good questions too. I'm thankful because I was like, "Oh no, what if I just sit there like a stupid lump and I don't know what to say?"
you're
I
right.
was like, "Oh God."
Like stupid
But
lump.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it
It's
was a lot of
great.
fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, Jeffrey.
Thank you for listening to this episode with Dusty May Taylor. I really hoped you liked this episode, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. It's always a great pleasure making these episodes for you. Until next time, take care.